Sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
Always live on the free Odyssey app.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
Yes, they'll play. Yeah, the starters will play. Yeah, it's just what I feel like is best for the team right now. And every preseason is a little bit different based on where guys are and where the team is. And so they're going to play this week, and I feel like it's best for where we're at right now.
I don't want to jinx anything, but I'm going to hop on the bandwagon that Bills fans say it every year. We're going to win it all. Go Bills!
Let's go, Amerks.
Not only the 53-man roster, but what I love, the practice squad.
The NFL preseason continues tonight with a triple header.
Irsay and Jarrett Jones are locked in a battle right now as to see who can be the zaniest, kookiest, and most entertaining figure in pro football.
Mike Danger.
I am a hero.
Reach.
Gene Battaglia.
You know how you always have that joke, hey, I wouldn't want your job? I think I would want Mike Danger's job. Even though he got to go see Doja Cat in Los Angeles.
Okay, I'm jealous. I said it. I'm jealous.
It's week 0 in college football tomorrow, but we only have 2 top 25 teams that will be in action.
0 week.
Buy or sell, you like week 0.
As an expression?
Yeah.
I hate it so much. It's so dumb.
It's got to be week 1, right?
Yeah, it's week 1.
What do they know?
Giannis Antetokounmpo doesn't plan to sign a contract extension with the Bucks when eligible next month.
It's showtime! No!
The A's leaving.
And day 2 of the Tour Championships underway. Soccer!
He's also the guy that was a baby model. Were you a baby model?
95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome on in the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia. Did you say that part where you were jealous of me again? A little bit louder for those in the back?
No, that's it's an edit there.
Oh,
I think that
the
was
Dandalorian?
That was a Dandalorian.
Taking liberties with your words?
Yep, because if you listen closely, I believe that was I'm jealous talking about other shows like The Break Room being invited out to throw the first pitch where you and I were still waiting. So I'm pretty sure that's where he pulled that cut from.
I understand. So that's the Dandalorian's game. The bounty hunter, the finest audio in the galaxy, will mix and splice and use your words against you as that's his superpower. It's his superpower.
I think so. Because they're talking like, this sounds like a lot of fun. Like Danger gets to go across the country. I'm like, yeah, you know what? That's work, dude. What you were doing.
I was not on vacation the last 3 days.
No,
that was not a vacation. That was work. I mean, listen, it was in a vacation destination. I got to visit Virginia Beach. But it wasn't me laying on the beach. That was the part I was like, I'm so close to the beach. I'm so close to the ocean. I'm looking out my hotel room window and I can smell the ocean air and I can see the waves crashing in. And it was kind of demoralizing knowing I'm going to spend 0 time on that beach while I'm here. I'm going to be in conference rooms and meetings and dinners and strategy sessions and meeting and I don't take any of it for granted. But if anything, it made me think, oh boy, I'm going to have to come back here again and I'm going to have to do it right. I'm going to have to do it right and get my toes in the sand because that's where my head is at.
So you weren't there as like a destination. It wasn't a conference or anything, but I'm just wondering why do these conferences go to Vegas or South Beach or wherever when you actually have to focus on work, but then you're in a place where you want to play?
The work conferences that I've been to in Vegas were always my favorite because you do get the work done during the day. You might get some time during the day to relax depending on what the agenda looks like, but then you have the night to just do whatever you want. Like you'll get your dinners done and your dinner's out of the way and you can choose to play as long as you want to play. There's always something going on. There's a variety of shows. Obviously, I don't have to tell you Vegas is the entertainment capital of the world, right? This in Los Angeles, okay, the restaurants, nightlife, concert venues, blah blah blah. This was really all about like, oh no, we're here to work. Yeah. We didn't do any. I mean, the most touristy thing I got was after one of our dinners, one of the locals kind of like showing me around Virginia Beach. And if you've been to Virginia Beach and you know Virginia Beach, you're like, all right, Virginia Beach is like kind of like your any typical beach destination town, right? Lots of mini golf, lots of hotels, old and new, resorts, old and new. Some parts of Virginia Beach are exquisite, beautiful, absolutely stunning that I didn't know existed because I was only exposed to the touristy parts of Virginia Beach. When the locals show you what they want you to see, it's like, oh wow, yeah, this place is actually really kind of spectacular. So that was my last 3 days, and you're gonna have to carry me a little bit here, buddy, because my flight was delayed last night. I didn't get out of Newark until after 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock. I think 11:45 or 12 is when our flight actually left. I didn't get home, bed on my head on my pillow until 2 a.m. last night. So I'm still kind of reeling a little bit, and the party don't stop for me. Dad rock vibes in full effect tonight. I'm driving to Buffalo with Sandy. We're going to take in Jimmy Eat World and Manchester Orchestra. So
cheapers.
I gotta inject a little energy here.
All right, you'll be fine. Here's the Cliff Note version. I mean, the stories we talked about yesterday, which kind of still relevant. The idea that Sean McDermott's going to play Josh Allen in the starters. And the question I'd ask you, Mike Danger, is the obvious one: why? And the conclusion I came up with is this is McDermott just making himself actually kind of feel better. I mean, there is such a gap between this game and September 11th. We're talking about 16 days. So whether the Bills play bad or they play good, to me, it has no bearing on the team actually getting ready for the Jets on September the 11th. Mike
Tomlin had a really good quote after his team looked impressive for a second week in a row in the preseason in blanking the Falcons last night, 24-0. He played his starters in week 3, and the Falcons did not. The Falcons trotted out their schlubs, their bubble guys, right? And Arthur Smith's justification was, well, I want to see these guys who are fighting for a roster spot compete against guys who are actually going to be on a roster. Didn't work out well for Atlanta. They get blanked. But Tomlin afterwards said, you can't box if you don't spar. And I guess then you have to kind of decide, all right, well, how much sparring do you need before you box? And he's, saying, look, I don't need to justify why I do or don't do what I do. One thing that Sean McDermott did say that I heard in that open that the Dan DeLorean put together for us is that, every preseason is different. Every situation is different. Every team is different year in and year out. So a coach could have his method or his way, or a team could be like, well, this is the way we've always done it. And nothing should be concrete like that. Like, I agree with that this is a different preseason with different pieces in different places. Josh Allen is not the problem. You are admittedly putting him out there at risk, but you need cohesion. If you learned anything from that game in Pittsburgh last week, and it's like, yeah, this offense does need some cohesion. There is a bit of a disconnect between the guys that are on that offensive line and the quarterback.
Or just go out there and care. Or go out there and actually, you need to get your head in the game. And I think if the Bills show that their head was in the game against the Steelers, I don't think we're having starters go out there against the Chicago. That was the thing. And what harkened back to the era of Greg Williams. Greg Williams at camp used to make players, if you jumped offside, you're taking a lap. He used to call it an opportunity lap. I'm like, okay. Well, the veterans on the team like Reuben Brown figured out, wait a second, I could just jog around this long field and take my time and I can miss reps. Oh, okay. Well, Sean McDermott's making guys run laps this week. So what are we doing here? This is a veteran team. They know they have to be better.
Yeah.
I think, though, Danger, what's more interesting to me isn't necessarily what we see on the field. We're going to be paying attention, but what's coming up here next week? This one cut down day by 4 p.m. Tuesday, and then finding out what were you awarded on Wednesday at noon. It's not going to be quite like NFL free agency, but it's going to have that feel. A lot of movement happening next week. And also something that was curious, up until yesterday, we hadn't had a single trade in the NFL this preseason. And all of a sudden, Arizona, boom, 3 guys, including 2 guys that weren't connected to the Buffalo Bills, but a lot of Bills fans were like, what about Simmons? Well, he goes to the Giants for a 7th-round pick. What about this backup tackle named Jones? All right, well, he goes in a pick swap essentially to Houston, and there was another trade where they brought in Josh Dobbs because Cleveland had decided to go in a different direction at their backup quarterback.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. I think a lot of that is just Bills fans saying, "Hey, there's something going on. Why aren't we a part of it?" Like, I can't tell you with certainty that any of those players would make a difference on the Bills' final 53-man roster, because do they bring anything of real significant value? And furthermore, what evidence do you have, Gino, or does anybody have that Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane are going to bring anybody into this organization, into this locker room, onto this roster, and use them the way you think they're going to be used? I mean, they trust to a default the guys that have been here, and it might be to their detriment. The loyalty that is shown to the guys that have been here the longest, the loyalty that is shown to the guys that came up a certain way or do it the way they want it done versus the guys who have actual talent. It'll be interesting to see early in the season. We talked a lot about Taylor Rapp this preseason, right? Here you brought a guy in. It's a 1-year deal. He's won a Super Bowl. He made plays in that Super Bowl. He's a free agent. The Rams don't keep him for one reason or the other, but he recognizes that there's an opportunity here for him in Buffalo, and if he does well in his 1 year, he could have a long-term career here. He could stay here a long time. I look at Taylor Rapp as what Jordan Poyer was to this team the first year Jordan Poyer was, with a little bit more glitz because he has that Super Bowl ring, and Poyer was kind of claimed off the scrap heap. But if we all kind of see with our eyes that Poyer has lost a step or doesn't have it because it's the end of the line, it's the final year, at what point do they swallow their pride and say, hey, maybe what's best for us is to get this guy out there, even though we're loyal to Jordan. We've been loyal to this player all along. And I think that you could talk about guys that are going to come into this team after that cutdown day, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to get anything meaningful until they get up to speed, until they get ramped up. Nyheim Hines at the trade deadline last year didn't really get up to speed with this Bills offense. Didn't really happen. We didn't really ever see him utilized the way everybody knows. Anybody who has two eyes knows. How do you utilize Nyheim Hines? Catch balls out of the backfield. Use his speed. Get him in space. Bills didn't do any of that. And save for the times that they used him on special teams, he was underutilized after the trade deadline.
I hear you.
Yeah.
But now let me give you the counterpoint. The counterpoint is this. Eli Harold. Who's Eli Harold? It's a guy the Buffalo Bills, we were all high on one training camp, and the Buffalo's like, yeah, no, that's a spare part. We don't need him. Let's go trade for Ryan Bates. And Ryan Bates came in, and this is 2 years ago, and ended up being a star. Oh, wow, that was kind of... So, yes, it can be done. It has been done where the Bills go out and trade for things that you actually need. And I think it's a reasonable expectation to say, you know what? You don't have right now your swing tackle on this roster. I know a lot of people are high on Vandermark, but apparently he can't play right tackle, so that's not exactly a swing tackle, is it? And you really don't have a middle linebacker. You just don't. And the idea that, well, if a Levante David or somebody else were available, Krista Prasso talked about this. It's the communication piece. It's the Sean McDermott piece.
Yeah, it's trust.
It's the trust.
It's trust.
Your middle linebacker not only has to know his position, he's got to know everything else in this defense. So if you bring in somebody from the outside, is that actually going to be a detriment week one, or how long would it actually take to bring that guy?
Completely. And look, we say it all the time. The foundation of any good relationship is trust. There's a reason why Kyle Allen is the backup quarterback for the Buffalo Bills. It's not because he's super talented. There's certainly more talented quarterbacks out there. He's buddies with Josh Allen. Josh Allen trusts Kyle Allen. Josh Allen trusts Matt Barkley. That means something, but there are more talented players. We all admit there are more talented players out there that could fill those roles. And I think the middle linebackers are the same thing. Like right now, Tyrell Dodson, not the best option. There are better options out there than Tyrell Dodson, but he's the guy right now that they trust, for better or worse. He's probably going to be out there week one unless something happens here at the last minute.
Oh, you think that? I think that the guy that they trust is
even more.
A.J. Klein.
Right, even more, which might be even more of a liability at the position. Why? Because he's older and he's less athletic? Totally. I mean, that's the challenge of doing it the way that they've done it. there's a premium placed on character. There's a premium placed on loyalty. There's a premium placed on you've got to go out there and earn it. And like all of that is fine and all of that is good, and you stay with it, but you might stay with it a little bit more than other teams do and hold on a little bit longer than you need to. And I refuse to believe. I still, to this day, believe that there had to have been a better plan at middle linebacker that blew up in their face. And maybe it was draft night. Maybe it was we have designs on Jack Campbell and Detroit went in there and scooped him up. And now we've got to kind of piece this together and we'll get by with what we have.
Or we're going to get ourselves a Bobby Wagner or somebody else like that in free agency. Somebody, the plan isn't there. 11 a.m. for the pregame coverage tomorrow. The other thing, like, while you met, we're gone. Oh, we haven't told you it was on the show here today.
Well, let me set the table quickly, and we appreciate you joining us here on the Sports Bar. It's going to be a fun afternoon. You're welcome to join us on the Good Smoke Barbecue and Pub Wingman line at 866-4FAN. Award-winning barbecue from Good Smoke Barbecue and Pub in the new location at 135 West Commercial Street in East Rochester. GoodSmokeBBQ.com. You can watch the Sports Bar at the Fan Rochester on YouTube and Twitch. We sound our best in the free-to-download Odyssey app. If you're local and listening at 95.7 FM and AM 950, we certainly appreciate that as well. If you're home, we're on your smart device. Just ask it to play 95.7 The Fan. From Fantasy Pros and Betting Pros, Thor Nystrom joins us at 4:25.
Yeah, so we do have games tomorrow, and I'm not talking about the Bills or anything else in the NFL. We do have, as they call it, Week 0, but come on, let's be honest. It's a little less than appetizing. I mean, we get two ranked teams. One of them playing San Jose State, and the other one's playing Navy. But you want to bet a little bit, and we want to look ahead here to Labor Day weekend. We'll talk some college football coming up, 4 o'clock hour with, our hero of the point spread, Thor Nystrom, Fantasy Pros and Betting Pros, coming up 4:25.
Our superhero of the spread joins us next hour. Later on here in just like 10, 15 minutes or so, we'll be joined by the host of the Barreled Up podcast, an Odyssey original, Jim Riley, will join us to talk some Major League Baseball.
Here was my take on Shohei. I'm sure you were up to speed. We were on the air. Dan DeLorean, by the way, thank you for filling in. Dan DeLorean and I were looking at this Reds-Angels game on Wednesday, and okay, Ohtani hits a home run first inning. Second inning, they pull him out at the time. Arm fatigue.
Okay.
We and I were like, arm fatigue. Yeah, you know what? My arm, I need to save it for free agency. Exactly. And then later that night, every baseball fan saying no. Yankee fan, Dodger fan, everybody who had images in their mind of having Shohei Ohtani, best player of our generation, on their team. And we all asked the question, why? And I want to ask Jim this question. Because it was a story, Danger, but we're in the middle of training camp at Fisher and everything else. Shohei Ohtani's playing against the Rangers. The trade deadline has just passed, and he is in the dugout, and the cameras catch him welling up. There are 162 games each season in Major League Baseball. What would cause Shohei Ohtani to well up? And baseball Twitter is like, well, he's just upset he didn't get traded. Well, he's just upset that he's not winning. Or maybe he's in freaking pain. What point did his elbow start to bother him, and should the Angels be held liable because there are warning signs, pulling himself out of a start because of cramps against the Padres, pulling himself out of another start. They overuse the guy, and I'm just curious to get Jim's take here coming up.
Or could he be welling up because he is in pain but knows that, here's what's hard to kind of understand about Shohei. We see him compete, but just how competitive is he? Is he one of those competitive freaks like we've seen over the course of time, the Jordans, the Kobes, the guys that you can't pull, the Tom Brady's, the guys that you can't pull off the field, that only excel at greatness. They only want to play in that field, that arena, and nothing you can do is going to get them off of the court, the field, the rink, whatever it might be. And it's him fighting through that pain. Are the Angels really liable for this, or is it Shohei? Are the Angels, if the Angels are liable for anything, are they liable for not protecting the player from himself, knowing he's probably not going to be here next year anyways? Let the guy go out there and compete. That's what he wants to do anyways. Let him go out there. Let him go out there and throw until his arm falls off. He's not our problem after this year.
Yeah.
I think the Angels are just such a disaster of an organization. It's why, and imagine being the team, if you would have been the team, to trade for Shohei Ohtani at the deadline, and now you've got this to deal with. Oh, my God. The Angels would look like geniuses. All they needed to do was pull the trigger, collect a haul, and Shohei is onto a new team, a rental probably, but you have done right by your organization and your organization's future. And then, oh, look at that. Ohtani's arm broke down. Who could have seen that coming? I don't know. How about the Angels?
Or I'm gonna really put my tinfoil hat on. Maybe the Angels knew that this was a possibility and this was going to happen at some point. And well, he's in the lineup tonight supposedly against the Mets as the DH. Shohei is going to play because that's the way he's wired to answer the question. As a DH, you can play with a torn elbow. But do the Angels sit down and say, Shohei, we want you back. You can go get the surgery. We don't know if he needs a surgery, but let's say he does. Rest of the season off, we're going to do whatever you want, and you make the decision, and this is the last time you'll play here. And if the Angels are serious about trying to resign him, and I don't think they are, then that's what you would do. You would leave the decision to him when to get the surgery.
How many hundreds of millions do you think this injury just cost Shohei Ohtani?
I would say
at least 200.
Yeah, exactly.
At least 200
you
million.
went from $500 million to maybe $300 million because he is not pitching next year.
Do you think $500 million would have actually been the end result of Shohei Ohtani, a healthy Shohei Ohtani in free agency? Because the more I think about it, the more I think that the bidding would have gotten so out of hand that $500 million would have very easily become $700 million over a lengthy period of time.
I'd say no for like the Lerner effect. Who's Lerner? The owner of the Cleveland Browns. Like, owners wouldn't want to stab each other in the back like that. Maybe the guy with the Mets would have done that, perhaps, but I don't think for that reason that they would want to drastically reset the market.
Well, it's interesting. We've got some pennant chases and some wild card races to talk about. Jim Riley hosts the Barreled Up podcast. It's an Odyssey original. You hear it inside the free-to-download Odyssey app, and we will cover all things Major League Baseball with Riley next in the Sports Bar. Danger and Battaglia, glad you're with us.
Preseason wrapping up tomorrow. Buffalo in Chicago, where, yes, Josh Allen and other starters will play. Chris Trapasso today on One Bills Live on what to expect from the first string.
Sean McDermott just wants to see that first-team unit go out there. As much of the offensive line as that can play, be a cohesive unit, not have the false starts, the silly pre-snap penalties, even the holdings to call back some of those plays, and just let the Bills go in with a good taste in their mouth into that huge Monday night matchup against the Jets.
Our coverage begins at 11 a.m. tomorrow. Kickoff at 1 with Chris Brown, Eric Wood, and Sal Capaccio. Rochester Red Wings back home tonight as their homestand continues against Worcester. Yankees tonight, still trying to make a season of this. They're in Tampa Bay. Houston is in Detroit. The Orioles are home against Colorado. Gene Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester.
Neat or on the rocks? It's the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
Joined now by Jim Riley, the host of the Odyssey original podcast, Barreled Up, covering all things Major League Baseball. It's starting to heat up. We've got some wild card races, some pennant chases, and we've got a pretty significant injury to the game's best player. Jim, welcome back into the Sports Bar. How you doing, bud?
Thank you for having me. Always a pleasure to join you guys. And I'm doing well. We're cranking up. Like you said, we've got the pennant races going. We've got news. August is usually reserved for the dog days of summer, but that has been the furthest thing from the case this year with for better or worse, a lot of these storylines.
Yeah, well, the worst part, let's get this out of the way. Shohei Ohtani, how much do you blame the Angels? And they're just these signs that I'm like, wait a second, that doesn't make sense. Like these starts, I remember one against the Padres, I've got cramps in my finger. Or there's also a scene when they're playing Texas of Shohei welling up in the dugout, which, other than Wilmer Flores, I can't remember another instance like this. So is he welling up because he's in pain? Jim, what do you make of this situation here? Was this just horrible luck or the Angels to blame?
I think maybe you could say a little bit of both. I think that some of the injuries that we had seen from Ohtani weren't really, or didn't seem to be that connected to the UCL, which is what ultimately was the final straw here. And, a lot of times you'll hear about forearms and things like that, and it ends up leading to, well, here comes the Tommy John train again. Ohtani is one of those things you're going to try to push through some things at this time of year, knowing that your season is sort of in the balance. The Angels just went through they didn't do well. They just went through a 19-game stretch where it was their season. Their season was on the line. It was a brutal schedule, playing some of the best teams in MLB, the Rangers, the Astros, the Braves, and they got their butt kicked. They went 6-13 in that stretch. So it was kind of like time to game up and go, and we see where we're at now.
Jim, I think of a couple of what ifs with Shohei. One, I think, what if the Angels ended up trading him at the deadline in the haul that they could have gotten for, basically allowing Shohei to be a rental for another team? And what if that other team that acquired Shohei then had to deal with this injury? Like, could the Angels have known that the usage was so out of control that they might be dealing damaged goods? And how many hundreds of millions of dollars do you think are left on the table now with this injury to Shohei?
That's an amazing what if. I mean, you would think if the Angels saw something like this coming, it would have increased their likelihood to trade him, right? They came out there pretty firmly, several days before saying, no, we're not going to trade him. So you got to think that they didn't suspect anything. And you're right. Oh, man.
But, Jim, how could they I guess here's another part. How could they not? He does something that nobody else in the game does. Yeah. How could they not see this guy could break down? Because everybody in the world of sport now, everybody tracks everything, every step, every meal, every calorie burned, every pitch thrown.
Oh, and that he played in March. Like
in the World Baseball Classic.
Level in March.
So how could they not know that this it could potentially happen to anybody? But the likelihood of it happening to a player like Shohei, given how much he's used, they had to know that this was coming.
And well, I don't know. I mean, you see the Rangers doling out money for Jacob deGrom. You see these teams taking that risk and either paying big bucks or throwing guys out there. You're trusting what the player's going to tell you. You're trusting what your pitching coach is going to tell you. And if they're giving you the thumbs up, you're gonna keep going. But that what if that you threw out is fascinating about another team having maybe traded pieces for him and then not get to actually roll with Ohtani and not have him for this playoff stretch. In terms of the money that he could be missing, it's a fascinating question. It is certainly right on the tip of everyone's tongue after they talk about the UCL, because we all kind of figured he was a $500 million man. Like that was the starting point. That was to enter the room to have a conversation. And now, is that still the case? And I don't know. We're going to see, because there may be some teams that want to play it smart and conservative that don't want to go to 500, but then there may be teams that say, well, this is our chance to get him, because before we didn't have the chance. Maybe the Angels actually have a better chance of re-signing him by saying, you know what, we're going to pay you like the UCL thing never happened. Or the Yankees. The Yankees have the geographical disadvantage. They're on the East Coast, where it is Ohtani will stay on the West Coast. But what if the Yankees will say, you know what, we'll pay you as if the UCL tear never happened? What are the West Coast teams? What are the Dodgers doing? It's going to be fascinating to see. I still think he's going to break the bank, because you're going to see the potential. Well, we've seen the potential, and to have that on your team, I still think he's going to probably walk away from this free agency with the richest contract in history, even with this lingering.
Yeah, I look at the contenders. One more Shohei question, because I'm still wondering where he's going to end up. And the Dodgers you mentioned. I look at teams that we know were in on Aaron Judge that missed out, the Giants and the Padres. The Padres, for some reason, act like they're in New York. Are there any other contenders, like a Seattle, maybe a Texas? Are there any other teams that might pop up and enter the bidding, in your opinion?
Well, now we get to what is your risk tolerance. Prior to this UCL injury, I think anybody that could find money would be in play. And then it comes down to, well, where does Shohei Ohtani want to play? Does he want to play East Coast? Does he want to play West Coast? Does he not care about that anymore? So anybody prior to this injury would have said, if we can find the money, we're in. That goes anywhere from the Dodgers and the Yankees to the Orioles and the Athletics. If you can scratch the money together, let's go. Then you get to, where do you think Ohtani wants to play? And after going through this with the Angels, he's going to want to choose to go to a winner. And that narrows the field down, because the Padres, sure, they'll be there with the money, but look what happened this year. They had the money. They went out and got players. They have Soto. They have Bogarts. It doesn't matter. They're losing. And if you're Ohtani and you look at that situation, I don't think Ohtani's going to want to go somewhere thinking that he's the missing piece. He's going to want to go somewhere that is already established and capable of making a World Series run. So that's where you kind of start to look back to the Dodgers. Maybe Seattle can get into the conversation. I can't rule them out, because they've shown over the last few weeks that they can get their stuff together and make a run. So it's going to depend on location. It's going to depend on Ohtani's preference and a team's risk tolerance, because Seattle may say, no way, we're not paying that money if we don't know if he's going to pitch and hit and how effective a pitcher he's going to be.
You mentioned the Mariners, and I'm curious, Jim, as we talk with Jim Riley, the host of Barreled Up in the Odyssey app, which teams do you have the jeweler's eye on here as we draw closer to the postseason? These wild card races are tight. The AL West feels very tight right now, with Texas holding a slim lead in that division, but you got both Seattle and Houston in wild card position. In the NL, Chicago, Cincinnati in the Central, albeit probably a down division, but there's some fascinating teams kind of like on the fringe here. How do you see this all playing out? What are you looking at?
In the American League, the interesting element is what's going on with the Texas Rangers right now. They are on a 7-game losing streak. Mm-hmm. They are really struggling right now, and Houston is just kind of hanging around. Houston's not really playing that hot either, but Seattle's on fire. So there's a good chance we could come out of this weekend and Seattle could be in first place. So you're now looking at, can 3 AL West teams make the playoffs to get the wild card, or does Toronto fit in? And I guess you really can't count out Boston either, because Boston's hanging around. Seattle has a very easy schedule over the next week and a half, which could help propel them even further. So we're going to probably, if the schedules play out and how they look like they could, you'll see Houston, Texas, and Toronto going really head-to-head for that final wild card spot. And I don't know if Toronto is consistent enough to get there. I mean, that's my team, but I just don't see the consistency there. I think we could see all three AL West teams get a spot. And then in the National League, I'm going to lean on the side of pitching, because that's a much more jumbled up situation in the NL. So in the American League, it's really, Toronto's on the outside looking in, and then maybe Boston. So we got 2 extra teams outside of what's available. In the National League, you've got 4 other teams outside of what's available, trying to grab a wild card spot. And I'm going to lean on pitching for that. So Philly's looking good right now. I'm going to say Philly makes it in. Then you have, separated by about a game and a half, the Cubs, the Diamondbacks, the Giants, the Reds, and the Marlins. And I'm erring on the side of who has the best pitching out of that group, which leads me to the Cubs and Miami. I don't trust San Francisco's pitching. I don't think Arizona has the pitching to do it. And the same with Cincinnati. Those 3 teams at the deadline should have gone out and grabbed one of the starting pitchers that were available. None of them did that, and I think they're going to pay the price. I think pitching wins out in the end in the National League.
Jim Riley, our guest here. The loaded question: how do you rebuild the New York Yankees? I mean, we spend a lot of time talking Yankees here, Jim, and every Yankee fan I talk to, they want Cashman gone. People seem divided on Aaron Boone. My take is this: that for alignment, you probably want your GM, if you're going to hire a new GM, to bring in their own manager, but this isn't a quick fix, correct? I mean, how would you go about actually rebuilding this once proud franchise?
Well, Cashman's last name might as well have a hyphen Steinbrenner in there. He's basically blood. He's basically family. I don't see him going anywhere. They'll trust him to rebuild the situation here. Whether Boone is a part of that is, I guess, still a little bit up in the air. I think that depends on how this team finishes out the season. They're playing terribly, and they may finish below 500 for the first time since the early 90s. Which is amazing. So does Boone end up having to pay the price for that, or do they make sweeping changes around him, which I honestly think that's more likely the case. I know they just brought in the new hitting coach, John Casey, and all that, but I feel like before Boone goes, before Cashman goes, I think there's maybe a fundamental shift within the organization, and then you see how Boone handles that. And if he can't handle that well, then maybe he's got one more year and he's out after the 2024 season. And I know Yankee fans want somebody to pay the price, but I feel like both of those guys are still going to be there. And because the other thing you have to consider for the manager perspective, who's out there that you want to go and grab and insert into that chair? There's nobody that great. Everybody that you would go grab would be an unproven commodity. Now, granted, Boone was an unproven commodity as well, and it's kind of sort of worked out a little bit, but this team is in for. I don't see. They have so much money wrapped up in Judge and Stanton and Cole and now Carlos Rodon. I don't think they could go out there and buy their way out of this. So they're going to have to count on the prospects that they finally called up Everson Pereira. That's a nice step in the right direction. You got to get Pereira more at bats. You got to continue to develop Volt, because that's what's going to fix it. I really think that is what's going to fix it, which may mean next year is not a banner waving year either. It's a tough spot that they're in with the money that they spent. You could argue the Stanton contract is the biggest setback. I've got Yankee fans that still point to that as the moment when the roster you sort of started to decline. So you've got a tricky situation that unfortunately is not an easy fix, and Yankees may have to live with this mess for a little bit longer than they're comfortable with.
Jim, I'll hear Yankee fans throw out the name Derek Jeter. Anything?
I don't think so. I mean, he didn't. I mean, what did he do with Miami, right? Other than get rid of that the monument statue out in the outfield that everybody loved, but he hated.
Threw out the artwork.
Yeah, throughout the artwork. He didn't really do anything that's transformative in Miami, and the Yankees are not really. They haven't shown that nostalgia to go out and hire people. Mattingly never was a guy, even though he kicked around and he's been managing around, and now he's a bench coach with the Jays. I don't know if there's a Jeter play. I would be skeptical. I don't know how Jeter would even fit in with because Jeter, I don't think would replace anybody. You would fit him in, Jeter maybe underneath Cashman, but what's that going to do? So I can't see that being anything that makes any waves or changes anything drastically.
We're talking to Jim Riley. I got a chuckle reading that was the first time that Oakland A's owner John Fisher had actually spoken nationally rather than in front of a microphone since he bought the team in 2005. You've got to be kidding me. Finally, he's speaking. And, okay, what's the plan in the interim? Where's the team going to play? I don't know. And I get a kick out of the artist renderings. That's all fake. Yeah, no, that's not going to fit on that land. So I guess my question is, is this actually going to get approved by owners, Oakland going to Vegas?
As odd and complicated as this feels, they're going to Vegas, and it's going to be a little awkward in the interim, and it's just I think it shows how uncomfortable a relocation can be right now. I think they're going to Vegas, and I think it's just going to be awkward and uncomfortable. And yeah, I mean, Fisher is, we have a few owners that are speaking, and maybe it would be best if they did it, but. It's just going to be a weird situation there with the A's until they finally get to Vegas.
Jim, tell us a little bit about Barreled Up now. You've been doing the pod for a couple of months here in the Odyssey app. Let our audience know more about you, more about the pod, and more about what we can expect here as we get into September.
Yeah, we're going to be cranking up about all around these pennant races as we gear towards finally getting to the postseason. A lot of guests coming on. You've got me and anybody familiar with the YouTube spaces. We've had Foolish Baseball. We've had Stark Raving Sports, Robbie Hyde, other prominent YouTube baseball creators in the space on with me talking baseball. So we kind of dive into it. We talk everything baseball from prospects and player movement to postseason and team activity. So definitely check it out if you haven't yet.
Jim, great stuff today. Let's do this again as we're approaching the postseason.
For sure. Thank you guys for having me on again. I appreciate it. Truly do.
DIAFC. Jim Riley. He is the host of Barreled Up, the Odyssey original podcast. Make sure to follow Barreled Up in the Odyssey app or subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
Yeah, as I think Yankee fans, their head are exploding. He doesn't see Cashman going anywhere.
What if they run it back? I don't think Cashman's going anywhere. I think he's right. I think everything he said about Cashman is right.
I have his name hyphenated.
Yes. Cashman Steinbrenner. He's not going anywhere.
He's going to go because it's bad for business.
Nope.
Your core audience.
Family.
Watching that game yesterday, half-empty stadium against Washington, you're losing. Who cares? Yeah. It just looks bad right now.
Yeah, it looks bad. But if the team is losing to Washington, Cashman put the team together. But
who cares?
If there's a fallout guy, it'll be boom. But God, could you imagine? What if they run it back? What if they don't change anything? Nobody's considering that the Yankees could just run it back and bring back both guys.
If the Mets were actually winning and stealing headlines and stealing dollars, then you wouldn't even consider that for a second. So the Yankees should operate in that space that, hey, these aren't the old Mets. At least they'll spend money. They're still bad, but...
we've got I'll Drink That next in the sports bar. Some takes on tap.
Yeah, The Buffalo Bills, like, we're making a lot of this. I'm going to tell you what this season really comes down to here. All these problems, so to speak, that we're encountering right now as we're wrapping up the preseason. And also my week 1 spotlight game. And it's one of these games like, wait a second, that line looks too good to be true. This is always the trap, like when you're like, oh, I'm taking this team because that team is so much better than this other team. You call it betting the chalk here.
Yeah.
Should I bet the chalk on Jaguars and Colts?
Okay, we'll get into that. I'm excited to announce that I have discovered my latest and new football man crush. We can look back in time. I certainly felt this way about Richard Sherman.
Well, I'm the best corner in the game. When you try me with a sorry receiver like Crabtree, that's the result you're going to get.
At his peak, I would say that's a guy I want on my team. It's a player that's on another team that you're like, when you see him play and you watch what he does, you're like, oh my God, I want that guy on my team. We felt this way about a 6'5", 235-pound quarterback out of North Dakota State with blue-collar work ethic and Midwestern values until we learned not a team guy. And now he can't find work. We felt that way about Carson Wentz when he was a rookie.
So you're trying to weigh out the two. Is this guy a potential, very steady NFL player, maybe in the Hall of Fame, Richard Sherman someday, or a flame out like Carson Wentz?
We've been talking about him enough this preseason. I'm head over heels. I'm smitten. I have my new football man crush. I'll tell you who it is and why he is worthy. I'll drink to that is on the way next. You're in the Sports Bar. Danger and Battaglia, the Fan, Rochester.
Odyssey has sports for every fan.
866-4FAN, 866-432-6. The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
Let's get into some takes. It's our little take space called I'll Drink to That, the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
So Bills, Bears tomorrow. We're all going to be watching the middle linebacker position, right? Dotson, how much is he going to play? Do they trot out A.J. Klein? What is the plan? Now, what if we get to the end of this and say the middle linebacker averaged 8.5 tackles per game, and for an entire season, just 2.5 sacks, 1 interception, 1 forced fumble? No fumble recoveries. If those end up being the numbers for whoever the Bills trot out there, we'll be angry. We'll point the finger at Brandon Beane or Sean McDermott. Guess what? Those are real numbers. Real numbers from a team that has gotten to the AFC Championship 2 years in a row. Those are the numbers last year for Bengals starting middle linebacker Logan Wilson, who has never once recovered a fumble in his 3 years as a starter. Here's my point. We examine the Buffalo Bills under this jeweler's eye, and we realize, look, that's not ideal middle linebacker. What is exactly the plan at backup tackle? These are first world football problems. You got Josh Allen and Steph Diggs. If those two men play their best football, everything is going to take care of itself.
Yeah, I want to go into this season having more belief in Josh Allen, but when you kind of wonder and look at why it looks like the Bills, a lot of people are looking at the Bills as the third, fourth, maybe even fifth best team in the AFC, it's still Josh Allen's decision-making.
That's it.
That's
really it.
If you really want to distill it down to one thing, it's his ability to get the ball out quickly, goal line, not necessarily red zone, goal line, because the Bills' goal line offense struggles where teams like Kansas City and Mahomes get the ball out quick. Allen hesitates. Quick decisions by Josh Allen. He looked good against the Steelers. He wasn't the problem against the Steelers in the preseason. I don't have a lot of doubts about what Josh Allen in his command in the offense looks like. I certainly don't have doubts about Steph Diggs, but if I do have doubts about anything, it's the decision-making of Josh Allen. It's not the ability, it's the decision-making.
He's got the potential to be an MVP. If it is going to be like last year, even a half step worse, well, guess what? You're not going to get any further. He needs to improve. That's the number one question. It's the question that we don't talk about. What will it take for Josh Allen to step up his game to an MVP level? And it's as simple as that. Better decision making.
And that, by the way, that's if you believe that the offense does what it's supposed to do with Josh Allen at the helm, and that's score more points and score consistently and score basically at will. And just in the little bit we saw, I get why Sean McDermott's being Coach Hardass and getting them out there for week 3. They didn't have that continuity. I mean, Allen made plays, penalties hurt them. They were just too sloppy. They were sloppy and they were over it. And let's see if this was a wake up call and if they look a little bit different with the reps that they get against the Bears tomorrow. I've seen enough, Gino. New football man crush. We've unlocked it. His name, we've talked about him, George Pickens. He catches everything, and I'm in love. I'm smitten. I've been saying all summer I think the Steelers are a playoff team. They looked like one in the preseason, and I know that's not worth anything, but Pickens is a marvel. You're only going to see his numbers go up this season. There are 3 stat categories that can only really go up for the Steelers here offensively. In 2021, they had the number 1 pass rate inside the 15-yard line. Last year with Kenny Pickett as a rookie, they dropped to 25th. Expect some growth there. Pickett was also dead last in red zone completion percentage. The Steelers as a team only had 7 touchdowns of 10-plus yards. That was last in the NFL as well. All of those metrics are going to improve. Pickett's second year, Pickens is going to be the main benefactor. I can't wait to watch him play this season, Gino. Cue the Berlin! For a 6'3", 200-pound bulldog wideout with acrobatic abilities and flypaper for fingers.
Oh, we have new poetry, too.
My guy, George Pickens.
Did you write poetry when you were courting Sandy, too, or is that different?
I had other ways to win her over.
All right. Like, I think, I'm not going to just stop there. I think you love the Steelers. I'm going to call you up. That's your second favorite team.
Well, look, I know we talk a lot of Buffalo Bills here. And I have to say, like, I want the Buffalo Bills to do well. I want the Buffalo Bills to win. Nothing would make me happier than to see the Buffalo Bills win it all.
Here comes the but.
But yeah, I think the Steelers will probably be winning.
No.
Just because of the way I think as a Bears fan, it's just a different way of it's an old school kind of.
Oh yeah, that's like I love that
smash mouth
fact
defense.
they had that fat slob at quarterback for so many years.
It's
I love the fact that they had a crazy wide receiver and a running back that held out. Yeah. Oh yeah, that's an organization I just love, my Danger.
It's a model organization, and you know it is. It's a model organization, and you know it is. 3 head coaches since the 60s. It's a model organization. A lot of NFL organizations look up to the Steelers and think, why can't our organization be more like they are?
Yeah, and it's a team that is so maddening. Where right now in the sunshine of summer, boy, they look great. Picker's going to look great, and they're going to play a crap team. Like, how did they lose? It'll happen.
Of course, it happens,
It'll
and Steeler fans recognize it. And I have a lot of close friends who are Steeler fans, and I hear it all the time. I feel like I've adopted them. They're top 3. We'll say that. They're top 3 for me.
All right. Yeah, they're just calling you out.
But you can call me out. Pickens, the player.
Oh, he's going to be good. Yeah,
exquisite.
He's going to be good. I knew you were going to go there because you said when it's all said and done, he will be the all-time leading receiver in Steelers history.
Yes. That we've talked about him. I mean, I've been saying all spring, all summer, I think the Steelers are a playoff team. I think Pickens ends up being the team's all-time leading receiver. He'll surpass when it's all said and done. He'll have more receptions, more yards, more touchdowns than Hines Ward. He's just magnificent. The catch he made last night. Are you kidding? Did you see the highlight of this catch he made last night?
I know.
Against the Falcons? He's just ridiculous. Ridiculous.
My week 1 spotlight game, Jacksonville and Indy. Help me make sense of this, Danger, because according to FanDuel, Jacksonville's -3.5.
Jacksonville favored 3.5 on the road.
On the road.
Yep.
That looks too good to be true, right? Anthony Richardson, like he might be good. He might put some yards, but he's still a project. And if the Colts are going to win this game, would they need at least 3 touchdowns, 24 points? I don't see it. 24 points for Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars coming out week 1 against the Colts defense. It's it should be enough. That's the part here. I feel like Chalky Chalkman laying the points. Take the Jaguars.
On the road. I think there's a couple of things that why you see 3.5. You're like, really? A rookie quarterback, but kind of a wild card. Like Richardson can make plays. Even though he might look horrible the play before, like the next play might,
something with his feet.
Take it to the house.
Yeah.
I mean, he's that kind of player. He's really spectacular. So there's a little bit of a wild card element there as to whether or not they can keep that close. Vegas knows, but I'm with you. I would go with Jacksonville because I don't know what Indianapolis is on the defensive side of the ball. And if you look at better quarterback, it's Lawrence. Better coach, it's Peterson. I would go Jags.
Yeah, would agree.
All right, we got to take a break. We're going to come back and talk some Week 0 college football with our buddy Thor Nystrom, our superhero of the spread. Thor from Fantasy Pros and Betting Pros joining us here in about 20-25 minutes.
Sounds good.
We have time for your calls as well. You can join us at 866-4FAN, 866-4326. More in the Sports Bar. 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester.
live on the free Odyssey app.
The Fan Rochester Sports Update.
Preseason wrapping up for the Buffalo Bills tomorrow in Chicago, where Josh Allen and other starters will play. Chris DePasso on the possibility of the Bills shopping at the linebacker position.
Even if you were to trade for a Levante David or a Devin White, yes, they could be out there and they probably would be physically capable. But really what I think the Bills are more concerned about is the mental side of it and calling the plays and getting everyone lined up.
Our coverage tomorrow begins at 11 a.m. Kickoff at 1 o'clock with Chris Brown, Eric Wood, and Sal Capaccio. It's game number 4 of the 6-game series. The Rochester Red Wings home tonight against Worcester. Yankees are down in Tampa. Houston gave up 17 runs yesterday. That's a franchise record. They are in Detroit tonight. The Orioles are home against Colorado. Gene Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
Yes, they'll play. Yeah, starters will play. Yeah, it's just what I feel like is best for the team right now. And every preseason is a little bit different based on where guys are and where the team is. And so they're going to play this week. And I feel like it's best for where we're at right now.
I don't want to jinx anything, but I'm going to hop on the bandwagon that Bills fans say that every year we're going to win it all.
Let's go, Amerks.
Not only the 53-man roster, but what I love, the practice squad.
The NFL preseason continues tonight with a triple header.
Irsay and Jarrett Jones are locked in a battle right now as to see who can be the zaniest, kookiest, and most entertaining figure in pro football.
Mike Danger.
I am a hero.
Reach.
Gene Battaglia.
You know how you always have that joke, hey, I wouldn't want your job? I think I would want Mike Danger's job. Even though he got to go see Doja Cat in Los Angeles.
Okay, I'm jealous. I said it. I'm jealous.
It's week 0 in college football tomorrow, but we only have 2 top 25 teams that will be in action.
0 week.
Buy or sell you like week 0.
As an expression?
Yeah.
I hate it so much. It's so dumb.
It's got to be week 1, right?
Yeah, it's week 1.
What do they know?
Giannis Antetokounmpo doesn't plan to sign a contract extension with the Bucks when eligible next month.
It's showtime! No!
The A's leaving. Then day 2 of the Tour Championships underway. Soccer!
He's also the guy that was a baby model. Were you a baby model?
95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan. Rochester.
Love the national guys. And Gene, I think you're like this too, a little bit. Week 0. Ugh. Week 0.
Why? I don't. Why all of a sudden is there this disdain? Like you need to start it on Labor Day week.
Well, I'm not going to complain about it. I mean, could the matchups be sexier? Of course, the matchups could be sexier. But we still get college football this weekend. If you want it, seek it out. It's there.
If I were John Wildhack at Syracuse or Dino Babers, if you're a program that wants some attention, why wouldn't you play this week? Why wouldn't you move a game to right now? We will be watching Notre Dame football tomorrow. We will be kind of searching around tomorrow night. Okay, can I get this USC game? Probably not. It's on Pac-12 Network. I don't even know if they're still in business at this point.
Whoa, Pac-12 Network, what's that?
Well, it's this conference that's out west. It still exists.
Really?
Yeah.
Do I have to download a separate app to find it? They streaming games on the Tubi app? Where are we looking for that one? I'm still going to, I'm going to seek it out. I'll find it. You know, if you want it, it's there. If you don't, if you're not into week 0 college football, fine. Wait until Labor Day. You're not going to miss much, but it's there if you want it. It's like preseason football. I know you want it to be over with. You're ready for week 1. A lot of us are ready for week 1.
Yeah.
I still like it. I still enjoy watching the preseason. I think it's fun. I think it's fascinating. I think, 1, it's football. 2, it's guys fighting for their future. It's a moment to see guys who you didn't know become something. I mean, what would Victor Cruz be without preseason football? What would Austin Eckler be if not for preseason football? Undrafted guys, Fred Jackson, guys that came out of nowhere, that became legends with their teams. Starts in the preseason, man. I love it.
And also you have many examples like Christian Wade, players that we get. Andy Isabella's that guy for the Bills.
That's a fun story, too. Like Christian Wade was a fun story. Everybody falling head over heels because he made he's a rugby player, and look at him playing American football. And of course, it didn't lead to anything, but it was fun for a moment.
My Christian Wade story is actually your Christian Wade story. The fact that he came up to do an interview with you and wanted to sit down, but he was so new at this, he couldn't take off his own gear, and you had to help him.
He struggled taking his pads off. Yeah, he needed a little help taking off his pads. And those boys, man, when they get off that practice field, we don't need to gross anybody out, but they'll sit down, and the sweat is permeating. It is just everywhere. It's like they sit, and instantly whatever they're sitting on becomes a sponge, and it doesn't dry out. Like, it's gross how much sweat is coming off these guys.
The good folks at Ace Swim, would lend us furniture. So we had this beautiful set, right? And here comes Richie Incognito right off the practice field. And he sits down and he gets up and the interview's done. And I'm not kidding you. This is quality furniture. It's ponding the sweat.
There's a puddle underneath.
There's a puddle.
He sweat through the cushions after practice. Yuck. Yeah, Christian Wade couldn't take his pads off. We had to help him with that before we interviewed him. But that was a fun story. So I look, part of it is also I don't want to wish what's left of summer away. There's a lot on the horizon, and we love fall, and it's a great time of year. But we've still got a little bit to hold on. And week 0 in college football doesn't feel like fall. It still feels like summer.
Well, I don't know like how it is on your side of the radio world. I feel like I'm in get ready business. Get ready for football. Get ready with everything. Get ready with back to school. And like my head's in a different spot. It feels like summer's over, even though, tonight I'll be going home on the. You see, you're going to be going out to a concert.
I'm going to Buffalo. Yeah, Dad Rock vibes tonight. Jimmy World Manchester Orchestra right on the water there in Buffalo. I'm looking forward to that. A couple of my favorites.
Tonight's, Box Wine Mafia night.
Oh, hashtag Box Wine Mafia. All right.
Yeah.
Welcome into the Sports Bar, by the way. Appreciate you joining us. Thanks for listening locally at 95.7 FM, AM 950. Our stream is up at the Fan Rochester on YouTube, on Twitch. 95.7 The Fan. When you ask your smart speaker to play 95.7 The Fan, we're there for you there, and we sound our best in the free-to-download Odyssey app. We're talking Week 0 college football with Thor Nystrom of Fantasy Pros and Betting Pros. He'll be joining us here in about 10-15 minutes or so. He's our superhero of the spread. We'll get some winners from Thor Nystrom, talk some college football. Nobody does it better than Thor, man. You let Thor just rip when it comes to college football.
Yeah, we're going to have this vote coming up pretty soon, too. We can ask him about this in the ACC. They're actually going to put this up to a vote. Should we bring in Cal, Stanford, and SMU? And now you're going to get this block of schools that are going to say, yeah, no, not unless we get paid more. Florida State, North Carolina, NC State, and I think Clemson in it. So could we be looking at the ACC eventually as the next conference to get broken up here?
Thor's great. He'll be joining us here in a few. Great conversation last hour with Jim Riley from the Barreled Up podcast. That's an Odyssey original. If you missed that, find it wherever you get your shows. Search out the Sports Bar, and all of our guest appearances are listed for you there. We also have Rewind inside the Odyssey app that allows you to go back and listen to any part of the show that you may have missed for the next 72 hours.
Well, our favorite, Chris writing in, Danger, you going up to Buffalo, you're going to grab some hot wings and blue cheese, and then after that, are you going to go?
Oh, yeah? Well, I'm going to go up to Buffalo, and I'm going to go get some hot wings and blue cheese, and then after that, I'm going to take my kids to the Bills game. Oh, yeah?
Have you taken your kids to the Bills game, Danger?
My oldest now is 19. And she's never really, she had an interest in football when she was little. She's daddy's little girl, and she'd wear her Brian Urlacher jersey on game days, and we had a lot of fun. But I have never taken her to an NFL game. And it's time. It's time for her to experience. We took her to a Penn State, Ohio State game at Happy Valley. That was an experience that she'll never forget. But it's NFL is a little bit different. It's a little bit more of a production.
Let's say this, too. Like, now that the Bills are winning, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, I sense over the last 3-4 years, at least since we got back to the games and going in person, there's less debauchery. I think like you have like the one guy pouring ketchup and everything, but like the getting blind drunk, the doing that, like you don't see this enough.
It's not a story anymore, Gino, because the Bills are winning. It's not a story because it's not. Maybe it was more of a coping mechanism when the Bills were bad, and people recognized it as a story because it was a cope for so many people, and it might still be a party, but less of a coping mechanism, less of a mental health issue, and more of just a party. And now it's fun. Now it's because I think a lot of that started because of just how bad they were. Like, we have nothing to look forward to, so we might as well just drink our faces off.
Yeah, and then as a byproduct of the secondary market, the ticket prices, you want to go, you might be going that route. It's going to cost you a little more. Again, this is all just, my observations. There just seems to be, maybe they're doing a better job with security. Like, you go back 15 years, you would see fights here, fights there.
Yeah.
Not as much.
Yeah. Well, she's got a little interest, so I think this might be the year that we take her to her first NFL game. We'll see. You're welcome to tweet at us. Twitter's Elon's Twitter, X, at the Fan Rochester, as Peter has. As Mike Danger names his new NFL man crush, CBS Sports throws this Siri out on Carson Wentz, #QB3. Are you ready for this?
Okay.
The theory here that CBS Sports has put out, Cody Benjamin putting this out on CBS Sports, on Matt Barkley. His second stint as Josh Allen's backup. Barkley and Kyle Allen have been uneven in their fight for number 2 duties, and now the former is battling an elbow injury after a 4-turnover preseason stinker. Owed just $150,000 guaranteed, the journeyman could easily be swapped out for another last-minute addition. Carson Wentz, anyone?
Danger, stop. Full stop.
I didn't say it.
No. Full stop, because you did say it. It came out of you are relaying. This is the fake news. This is how Stephen A. gets his stuff.
It's a take. It's all it is. It's not news. It's a guy's opinion. It's Cody Benjamin from CBS Sports opinion. That's what he wrote. He wrote Carson Wentz, anyone.
No, the journeyman could be swapped out for another last-minute addition. No, because the cut-down day is coming up. They're not going to bring in a quarterback and get him out of 53.
I'm just relaying what he wrote. I don't agree with it. I see what it is. It's a take. I don't think it's going to happen, but he's putting it out there. It's a take. Maybe it's a good take. It got you a little riled up.
No, it's not a take. This is why you should go to and listen to local shows like us. The cut-down day is Tuesday. The Bills are not going to cut Matt Barkley the day before the Bears game. They're not going to cut him after the game. They're not going to bring in Carson Wentz. Matt Barkley is Josh's buddy, as is Kyle Allen, Josh's buddy. So they're not going to bring in somebody that's not part of Josh's ecosystem.
I know. But Peter, thank you. You got Gene all fired up with this guy's opinion. And Gino is so fired up that he wants to dismiss it entirely. And I want to dismiss it as well. But I see it, and I view it, and I know what it is. It's a guy speculating wildly. Carson Wentz is still looking for a job. Could Carson... I'm with you. I say no. Not happening. Of course it's not happening.
No.
We were talking about this morning when I was in the break room, talking about Kyle Allen, talking about Matt Barkley. Like, we all think that there's a problem here because neither one has really looked great with their time in the field. Their primary job isn't, hey, you're ready to play and you're ready to get out there and win games. Your job is to get Josh Allen ready to win games. Your job is to have Josh Allen be comfortable with you. This is why Kyle Allen and Matt Barkley are on this roster, is because they both have relationships with him and they both do a good job of preparing him for what he's going to get thrown at him on a game day.
Right, and Matt Barkley will likely be cut and likely, I would say, be back in the practice squad. And what will be his job in the practice squad? I'll tell you what it's going to be week 1, to pretend like he's Aaron Rodgers. And week 2, pretend like he's Jimmy Garoppolo. He's going to run the scout team as a practice squad quarterback. Carson Wentz is not going to be a practice squad quarterback. I'm sorry. Like, somebody would have brought him in here. He still fashions himself as being somebody that could start.
Yeah, but I also think that the NFL is just completely that he's done. The NFL is just tired of his act, whatever that act is, the me first thing or the bad teammate thing or whatever it actually is. He's done. He probably is not getting signed, and he probably isn't on an NFL roster. And man, it's quick. It's funny how quick things change in the NFL.
He 2017. He's in Los Angeles and gets hurt. At that point that season,
remember that game?
He's playing at an MVP level.
Yes.
he would have been the MVP. So how do we get from MVP here to 6 years later, your reputation completely tarnished? But not even tarnished, deservedly so, by the way.
We may never know the real reasons or the real things that have happened behind the scenes. And let's face it, all professional athletes have plenty of skeletons in their closet, and they'll put on a public front that's completely different than how they are behind closed doors. But that one's a fascinating one. And for all the talk out of San Francisco, by the way, and I just lumped the two in together because they're both NDSU quarterbacks from North Dakota. Trey Lance, not beating out Sam Darnold for the number 2 job. And after they invested everything they invested to get him, I think NFL, I know that everybody calls college football the NFL's developmental league. They need a true developmental league where a guy like Trey Lance can get those reps and you could see it with your eyes against men, not boys.
Which is surprising that the NFL hasn't, said, okay, XFL, how much? Or USFL, how much do you want here?
Maybe that happens down the road. Hey, maybe we can ask Thor about that. Thor Nystrom, fantasy pros, betting pros. He's joining us next in the Sports Bar. We'll talk some Week 0 college football action here on the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
Odyssey has
update.
Preseason wrapping up tomorrow. Buffalo in Chicago, where, yes, quarterback Josh Allen and other starters will play. Chris Trapasso today on One Bills Live on what to expect from the first string.
Sean McDermott just wants to see that first-team unit go out there. As much of the offensive line as that can play, be a cohesive unit, not have the false starts, the silly pre-snap penalties, even the holdings to call back some of those plays, and just let the Bills go in with a good taste in their mouth into that huge Monday night matchup against the Jets.
Our coverage begins at 11 a.m. Kickoff at 1 o'clock with Chris Brown, Eric Wood, and Sal Capaccio. Wings are home tonight against Worcester. All the action in the majors on the lights, including the Yankees, who are down in Tampa. GetMyPerks.com, where today save 50% off to Sticky Lips Barbecue and Juke Joint on Jefferson Road. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester.
Straight up with no chaser. You're in the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
Let's talk some Week 0 college football with our superhero of the spread, fantasy pros, betting pros. Thor Nystrom is back in the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia. Thor, it's time. It's still kind of summer. Week 0 still feels like the last remnant of summer, but we've got some college football to get excited about this weekend if we so choose. How are you, bud?
Oh, I'm doing great. Yeah, we are here. We made it.
Yeah. Thor, we're all going to be watching tomorrow, Notre Dame and Navy. So really, that's probably the best thing that we're all going to be watching. But correct me if I'm wrong if there's another game that you'll have your eyes on. But how do you assess the Fighting Irish here going over? And when you're facing a team like Navy and that sort of offense, Notre Dame's faced them before, but how difficult will that be for a team coming out in their first game here? How would you assess this from a betting standpoint?
Yeah, difficult, but not nearly as difficult in this case, in my opinion, for two reasons. Number one, the change in the cut block rule where you can't do it outside of the box anymore that happened a couple of years ago. It's one of the reasons why Army now is going to a spread option type deal, like more like Coastal Carolina ran with McCall, moving away from the flex bone. That's number one. And then having the entire off season to prepare for the flex bone, and then the new Navy offensive coordinator, he does run, put some more wrinkles into it, out of shotgun, different stuff like that. But the tenet of it is flex bone. The guy was a disciple of Paul Johnson, and so I don't think it's going to be as tough for Notre Dame as, for instance, 3-4 years ago, playing a team like Navy in the middle of the season would have been, trying to prepare for that on 6 days rest.
Our other matchup Saturday night, you got USC hosting San Jose State, and USC is an interesting one here. I mean, last season in the Pac-12, probably the last season of Caleb Williams' time at USC. How are you looking at this game, and what's an opportunity for us here to make some money, Thor?
Well, it's funny. My projected total, it shades it a little under the Vegas one, but there's no way that I would bet the under of that game. USC's defense was an abomination last year. The only reason that they got bailed out some was because of turnover luck. You wonder if that turnover luck goes away this year. If they qualitatively stay the same on that side of the ball, their defense is going to sharply regress even from what it was last year. And then San Jose State, they return most guys on offense. They return almost nobody on defense. Their best players are all, moved on, whatever. Fehoko was one of them, got taken very early on in day 3, was their best pass rusher. San Jose State only returns 4 starters on defense, whereas they return 9 on offense. So I think there's going to be plenty of points put up, especially because of the way San Jose State plays. The very efficient offense where they try to get the ball into space, a lot of short passes, stuff like that. They force you to tackle in space one-on-one. That was a problem for USC last year, and that was before they lost their number 1 corner, Mekhi Blackman, who was one of the best cornerbacks in the nation last year, to the NFL. So, and as far as the side, my number is right where Vegas is. I have USC minus 32. It's in the low 30s in Vegas as well. So I don't see as much value in that one as some of these other games. That's more of a prop game for me.
Thor, what about value in projecting the Heisman? And we have Williams as the betting favorite here for his second Heisman, but is there value to be found elsewhere when you're looking ahead to the end of the season awards and who might actually be taking home the Heisman Trophy?
Yeah, for sure. Like obviously Caleb Williams is like the prohibitive favorite, whatnot. But like in the Heisman market, I'm never going to bet the favorite. Like the odds just, it's not juice worth the squeeze from an ROI perspective on that. So I typically look for longer shots that have a clear path. Which what we're talking about with the Heisman, you have to be invariably a quarterback on a team that loses less than 3 games, preferably. You make the college football playoff. Like we've seen a whole bunch of these guys win the national title, but I think over the last 25 years, it's been all quarterbacks except we had one wide receiver was Devonta. That was sort of an aberration season where, even like leading up to that, Mac Jones was the favorite up until the very end when people were just like, well, his receiver better than he is, so let's just give it to him. And then you had 3 running backs that have won it over those 25 years. But outside of them 4 years, been quarterback every time. And like I said, pretty easy to see. It's you can't have a 4th loss. You're eliminated then. You have to put up the bazooka stats, and the less losses your team have, obviously, the better. So I look at some guys that are, sort of unknowns that I think, at least sort of nationally, where they have a path, starting quarterbacks for teams that I think could potentially make the college football playoff and put up big stats. Whoever the Alabama starting quarterback ends up being and whoever the Ohio State starting quarterback ends up being. We don't yet know, but you can take a shot on one of those guys and get long odds on one of them. Whoever's starting for them, if he plays 12 regular season games, there's a real shot that he could end up in New York just because those teams obviously are going to be very good. They have a lot of weapons. In particular, Ohio State, they have one of the most ridiculous receiving corps we've seen in college football over the last decade. Another one is a guy who does have a starting spot on lock right now, Drew Allar from Penn State. He can be. This is the first year he gets to start because obviously Clifford, is now with the Green Bay Packers. But Allar, he's different than the last 2 quarterbacks that James Franklin has had there, in that he's absolutely like could potentially be a premier NFL prospect because he's got a big arm. He can move around a little bit, but the NFL arm strength with stuff like that, and Penn State, their talent has come up. So I think there's a shot that Penn State can hop Ohio State in that pecking order. I'm really high on Michigan, so I don't think Michigan is going to get hopped, but Allar is another guy I'd toss out.
Thor Nystrom, our guest here in the Sports Bar, as last one here on week 0. As Thor, I wish there were more games. I think like you and every other college football fan, and maybe television will force the issue at some point. Are there any other matchups coming up tomorrow? If Ohio, San Diego State, that'll be on FS1. Maybe a Hawaii Vanderbilt. Anything else that piques your interest here?
Yeah, the Ohio-San Diego State one is interesting because Rourke, the quarterback for Ohio, he tore up his knee in the middle of November, but he made like this miraculously fast recovery where even during the spring, he was out there in his pads. And we've known now for a while that he was going to start this game. But I'm just curious how much that affects his mobility, how much that affects the game plan. Because you guys know those, both the Rourke ones, the other kid, his brother, he's in the NFL now, and he's been opening some eyes in the preseason, but they like to move around, scramble, stuff like that. Will Rourke be confined to the pocket in this game? I'm curious about that. The Hawaii Vanderbilt one, that would be my one sort of long shot where I am on the underdog there. Hawaii getting 17.5 points. My system makes that game closer to 10. Last year, Hawaii, the first 2 games, they got absolutely drilled. One of them was by Vanderbilt, interestingly enough. You get kind of a revenge angle there. But after the first 2 games, I don't think people know this because Hawaii was playing late and stuff off the radar at that point. They went 9-2 against the spread their last 11 games. Quarterback play started to get a little bit better. The run and shoot offense for Timmy Chang, that was his first season. It started to at least be viable where teams had to respect the air just a little bit. They have this star running back that I think more people are going to find out about this year, Tylen Hines. Sort of the scat back that they can play in the slot, stuff like that. He's going to give Vanderbilt problems. And Hawaii just played hard down the stretch last year, even though it was a lost season where they finished 3-10. So, that's a team where you project for it. I think they're going to be stronger. I'm not sure that Vanderbilt is. In particular, their defense stinks. and their secondary was one of the worst in the nation last year. They didn't do anything to address it. So getting the 17.5 points, I'm going to take that.
Thor, we haven't had a chance to talk to you since all of the realignment talk here over the course of the last month and a half or so. I'm curious to get your thoughts, your idea of where this ends, how this ends, what's left with the 4 teams that are in the Pac-4 at this point. You know, what is your take on all the realignment that's happened here in the last couple of seasons in college football specifically?
Yeah, I mean, it's sad we're losing the Pac-12, and it's in particular sad for Oregon State and Washington State because I think, you know, Cal and Stanford, I think they're going to find a spot. Seems like the ACC is set to bring them in. That's the most recent reports that we had that they're going to bring those 2 in plus SMU. But it looks like Oregon State and Wazoo, they're going to be the 2 that get left out when the music ends, you know, in the roundabout and stuff like that. So I don't know if those teams go independent. I don't know if they drop down to the MWC, like what they're going to end up doing. But I'm not surprised by any of this, so I don't lament it too much. I was told a couple of years ago we were going to go to the 3 major conference thing very quickly, you know, that you were going to see 2 of these Power 5 conferences get killed off. The Pac-12, obviously, they were the first one that got killed off after the Big 12 was able to sort of save itself from that. Looks like the next one on the docket is the ACC, which they're trying to get ahead of by bringing in Stanford, Cal, SMU. But once Clemson and Florida State invariably leave, Miami leaves, you know, I don't know what the timing of this would be, but sometime in the next calendar year, all the dominoes are going to fall after that because the other teams that have offers from whether it's the Big Ten, whether it's the SEC, you can make way more money from their television revenue by going there. The ACC got themselves into a bad situation with a really long-term deal that now is way below market value when you compare it to what the SEC and the Big Ten schools get per season. So, yeah, the ACC got to do whatever it can to hang on. But, you know, if you were putting odds on anything, ACC would be heavy favorite to be the next one killed off. But I think we'll settle at 3, you know, major conferences after that. But those conferences are going to tell the NCAA to kick rocks. That will be the end of the NCAA, at least as far as overseeing major college football. Those guys are going to make rules themselves.
Yeah, so like at that point, why not just say, hey, we're the official minor league here of the NFL? We were talking about this before you came on, Thor, because quarterback development in the NFL it's not great. Like when you look at it, take Trey Lance, for example. Like how could the NFL just whiff on that so bad? Well, maybe if there was a better feeder system. I mean, when we get to this kick rocks NCAA and these colleges are doing their own thing, could we actually see more alignment with the NFL, Thor?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like, you know, I don't know if there would be any overt agreement between, you know, these hypothetical, Power 3 conferences once we get there. But for sure, in terms of making, like I said, their own rules, and there's going to be things that help the NFL evaluations that naturally flower out of this. One example of that would be right now, you know, every single season, these good Power 5 teams, they schedule one FCS team because you basically get another bye week that's put into your schedule. You know, some of the kids you brought in, the freshmen, that's the game where you get to let them play the second halves, different stuff like that. But I think those games are going away once we get to the 3 Power 3. It's just those teams are going to play each other. Well, you're going to get better games at that point, right? Because you don't have games that are just total throwaways. That's better from an evaluation standpoint for a number of different reasons. You know, it's more meaningful tape for sure. It's also a much larger data set that actually matters to what you're doing. You mentioned the Trey Lance thing. Trey Lance was one of the least, just in terms of just experience, one of the least experienced quarterbacks we had ever seen go in the top 5. But it wasn't just that lack of experience. It all came at the FCS level. You know, of course, it was a weird thing where, you know, it was around COVID and different stuff like that. There was factors for this of why it started late and why he didn't get the amount of playing time. But, yeah, I mean, San Francisco obviously took a shot on a kid where you had very, very little data on him, and you were totally betting on the upside. And it seems like they didn't quite see it through in terms of giving him all the opportunities and I'm not sure what happened internally there, but it's an odd situation where obviously those parties need to divorce now. But in the future, yeah, a kid like Trey Lance with all the transfer restrictions lifted, I think you're just going to see him transfer to the FBS.
Talking college football with Thor Nystrom of Fantasy Pros and Betting Pros and Week 0 this weekend. I'm already looking ahead to January, Thor. I mean, give us some value in the futures market to win the national championship this season. Who do you like? Who gives us the best chance?
My pick to win the title is Michigan. Really like what Michigan is bringing, but they bring back basically everybody. They're stacked on both offense and defense. Everything they do as far as that stuff goes. One of the teams that I think is going to be a bit of a surprise, I like LSU for that to come out of there and potentially make the playoff. And who knows, maybe even see Michigan there. LSU is the team I think that Georgia's afraid of in the SEC over Alabama. I think Alabama's a little bit down this year, just like I think Ohio State is going to be just a tick down. I think Alabama going to be a little bit more down than just a tick, whereas LSU, they're a team that brought back almost everybody from last year's team. Brian Kelly was 1 year ahead of schedule with how well that team played last year. Now you bring back basically everybody. They augmented it with transfers as well. So that's a team that I definitely like. Florida State is another one to keep an eye on that could knock off Clemson. And then Texas, if there was ever a year for Texas to be back, it's got to be this year. They're fourth in my preseason power rankings. The next highest team in the Big 12 is like 22nd or something like that. There's an enormous discrepancy between Texas' roster and the rest of the league. They have to go to Tuscaloosa in week 2 and take on Alabama. If I'm right about Alabama being down, that could facilitate knocking off Alabama there. And from there, you're playing a bunch of Big 12 teams that are not nearly as talented as you. So if you just avoid injuries, this could be the year for Texas to get into the CFP.
Yeah, you brought up Florida State, and that's a team that has been on our radar following the ACC, and they won out. And my question is actually about week 1. Is that the best matchup, Florida State, LSU? What are your thoughts here on 2 top 10 teams going on that Sunday night, Thor?
Yeah, I definitely think so. I mean, like last year when it was on the Monday night, those two teams played. That was so fun. Like everyone was watching it, and that game went back and forth, and then it was decided at the very end. And Keisha Butte looked like he didn't want to be within 20 miles of that stadium. He was just checked out, whatnot. This time, both those schools, it's like Norvell is ahead of schedule too, and Norvell was the Florida State coach, was somehow able to convince all these guys that absolutely should have declared for the draft to come back. Like I had numerous conversations in the spring about like, why did Jared Verse go back to Florida State? Like, what did Norvell give him? How did that end up happening? I don't know. But he's able to convince Jared Verse to come back, one of the best edge rushers in the nation, who would have been a first-round pick last year. Now he's a projected top 10 pick, but he wasn't the only one. And then Norvell was able to stock up the rest of it in the portal. Those two teams absolutely are, conference champion contenders, CFP contenders, et cetera. So it's a real treat to get that one, especially at a time when no other football is going on, and we can all just sort of sit down and watch it play out.
Thor, we made it. Football is back this weekend. Tell us about the work you're doing at Fantasy Pros and Betting Pros. Know you're having a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. I got out all my week 0 bets. I also have an over-under play for all 133 FBS teams. I have my projected win totals for all those different teams and a projected spread for every game that every team plays during the season that gets me to that projected win expectancy, and then putting that up against the Vegas number. So any of your college football betting needs, come on over to Betting Pros. We got you.
Yeah. So Thor, you're excited about the Vikings this year, seeing Kirk Cousins on the quarterback show. What's your outlook for that team?
I think the Vikings are, if I may, this is where I go a bit more into homer mode, but I think they're a little bit better than the public does. You had last year, 13-4, whatever. Obviously, the defense was way beyond problematic. The defense was an abomination. But they spent this offseason directly addressing that. Brian Flores is a guy who is overqualified to be a defensive coordinator. He probably should still be a head coach, but one of the best defensive coordinators in the NFL. You bring him in, your defense absolutely is getting better. It just becomes about how much, but we know that that's coming. I also think the offense has a real decent shot to get better. Last year, they either finished 8th or 9th in total offense. That was the first year under Kevin O'Connell, right? And they had some deficiencies on that team as well. In particular, they had really poor guard play. And then on the other side, from the best singular talent in football, Justin Jefferson, the other side from him, you had Adam Thielen, who couldn't separate anymore. And so it sort of bogged the offense down. It's one of the reasons why they went out and traded for T.J. Hawkinson. But the defense is absolutely going to be better, might jump up by 10 spots. And then that offense has a shot to get into the top 5. because of the things that, they did to address it. Jordan Addison, for instance, coming in for Thielen. You go out and you sign Josh Oliver, so now you can run 12 personnel. They do have to figure out they have to make Hawkinson happy to play the season because Hawkins is not happy that he doesn't have a contract extension yet. But I expect him to be on the field. But you put all that sort of stuff together without losing anyone that you cared about. That they didn't care about Dalvin Cook. Then it becomes like, can they have a top 5 offense where their defense is around 20th? I think that's totally theoretically possible. That's a team that absolutely can take down a crappy NFC North.
And speaking of the NFC North, Thor, are you buying into some of the preseason love and hype in Green Bay with Jordan Love now behind center?
Absolutely not. I've seen too much of Jordan Love to buy into that ridiculous hype coming out of there. Last time I watched Jordan Love was in the Mountain West Conference. He threw 17 interceptions for Utah State. I know that he's had like this apprenticeship and whatnot, and he's gotten some time, and apparently everybody around him likes him and stuff like that. But I did not see superstar ability or singular talent ability when he was coming out. To me, he's more station to station guy. Hopefully, over the last couple of years, they've improved his ability to read coverages and stuff like that. He had a lot of YOLO balls at Utah State. That year, he threw 17 interceptions before he went to the NFL. He had a ridiculous percentage of his throws were within 10 yards of the line of scrimmage. So that was my concern with him. Is like, you have this game plan that's conservative for you, and you're still turning the ball over a whole bunch. Presumably that stuff has been worked on the last couple of years as far as, like I said, reading the defenses. Hopefully Aaron Rodgers, despite what he said publicly, that he actually, helped him out a little bit. But I definitely don't see a star there. And Green Bay for me more this year is, rebuild on the fly. For me, they should be excited if they finish around 500.
Thor, great stuff as always, and good luck to your Vikings. And let's talk here as the season gets going along here. Thanks so much today.
Anytime, boys. I always enjoy coming on with you.
Love it. Appreciate the time, Thor. Thor Nystrom. You can get his work at Fantasy Pros, Betting Pros. Get you some winners for college football. Guy just is a wizard with college football. Our superhero of the spread. Getting you some winners for week 0, and we'll check in with Thor throughout the course of the college football season.
So one quick Bills note. It's actually a Bears note. Tomorrow's opponent, Justin Fields, will start at quarterback. But head coach Matt Eberflus was asked, all right, well then who's coming in after that? Who's the second string quarterback? You have P.J. Walker, Tyson Bagent, and yes, Nathan Peterman.
Looks unbelievable in the preseason. He's so good in the preseason.
Matt Eberflus. I'm not going to answer that. Ooh, okay.
Do you know how good Nathan Peterman looks in the preseason?
He always looks good in the preseason.
Do you know how good, though? Just how good? I mean, I feel like we should remind ourselves just how good, how intoxicating his play in the preseason is. So good that once upon a time, Sean McDermott thought it would be a good idea to start week 1 with Nathan freaking Peterman.
Over Josh Allen.
That's Buffalo Bills head coach Sean McDermott. Drunk with Peterman power.
Nate Peterman threw an NFL record 5 interceptions and a half and somehow got a second and a third chance later on the next following season.
He's never going to be a starter in the league again, even though he did start a game last year for those Bears. But a consistent starter, never, ever, ever, ever again. Good for him that he's still working. Good for him that he's still getting after it. But just keep that in mind when you talk about Nathan Peterman. Looked so good in the preseason. Did and said all the right things throughout the summer and throughout training camp to the point where Sean McDermott thought that gave you the best chance to win. Nathan Peterman, week 1 against the Ravens with the rookie on the bench.
Do we get, because after the game, where a lot of it is like, it's a lot of fraternization, right? Like, oh, my old friend. Hey, how you doing? How the kids? Everything else. Does Sean McDermott chat up Nathan Peterman following the game?
Oh, I'm ssure that there's a dialogue and exchange. Absolutely. We know who's in and who's out for some of these meaningful games here, or some of these games this weekend before we get to the meaningful games here in week 1. And we already know that the Bills starters are going to be suiting up. We now know that Justin Fields will be playing in Chicago. We'll get more into that here during happy hour. Sam Howell will hit the bench. Jacoby Brissett will get the start against the Bengals. Will Levis is sitting against the Patriots tonight. He was injured last week against the Vikings. Derek Carr won't play against the Texans on Sunday night. That'll be Jameis Winston getting the start in New Orleans. And Dak Prescott, one of a handful of quarterbacks who will end this preseason without taking a single snap. So there's that as well. 0 preseason play for Cowboys quarterback Dak Prescott. And if you watched any preseason football last night, you saw the Colts rookie Anthony Richardson taking on the Eagles and looking fairly impressive. 3 scoring drives with Richardson, who was 6 for 17 with 78 yards and 38 rushing on 5 carries. And the Steelers looked impressive again, 24-0 over the Falcons last night in preseason action after trotting out their starters against the Falcons' bubble players, guys that were on the bubble to make their roster. Didn't go well. We can also talk a little bit here during happy hour, not just about the Bills and the Bears preseason finale, but also the Jonathan Taylor news, where his request for a trade is still out there, and there are plenty of reports that have plenty of teams interested in making offers. Obviously, none of the offers good enough or to the Colts' liking. I don't think Jonathan Taylor's going anywhere. I don't know how you feel about this, Gene. I don't know what your take is.
Well, I mean, the take is this. Like, you go out there and you see what the value is, and okay, the one report, there's only really 6 teams, and we only know one. Well, you have a couple other names, though, that are interesting I hadn't heard here.
Yeah, it was Miami, of course, reportedly making at least one offer. Broncos have made at least an offer. The Bears, and one team making a, quote, serious offer for Jonathan Taylor.
All right, so, again, and when Tuesday, Bo was in, Bo Jackson from WB. And he was all gung-ho, do this trade. Well, we have Jonathan Cook. Okay, well, it doesn't matter. You can bring him in. It's not just would he make your team better. You're going to have to pay Jonathan Taylor. That's really – this is only a discussion I want to have if the Colts end up cutting him. That's it.
Yeah, he's not getting cut. No. He's under contract. You know how Jim Irsay is. You know the kind of player, the kind of owner he is. He's not going anywhere, Gino. He's not – this is a staring contest that inevitably the owner is going to win. And if Jonathan Taylor wants to play football this year, it's going to be with the Indianapolis Colts.
Or he then goes to my back doesn't feel so good.
Oh, right.
We're going to go do that all.
Sure. Which is, for fantasy football purposes, problematic, obviously. All right, happy hour coming up next in the Sports Bar. Take a break here. Come back with more. We'll talk a little bit more Bills, Bears, Week 3 of the preseason as we wrap up the preseason and get ready for meaningful football here after Labor Day. Lots to unpack from Thor Nystrom, Fantasy Pros and Betting Pros, Week 0 of college football getting underway this weekend. And we can go back and talk a little bit about Jim Riley's conversation with us, the host of Barreled Up, the MLB podcast. We'll get into all of that and a run of shots as well. Happy hours next in the Sports Bar. You can join us on the Good Smoke Barbecue and Pub Wingman line. 866-4FAN, award-winning barbecue from Good Smoke Barbecue and Pub, the new location, 135 West Commercial Street in East Rochester. GoodSmokeBBQ.com. Stay with us in the Sports Bar, Danger and Battaglia on 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester. Snap into action this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Mike Danger for FanDuel Sportsbook, the official partner of 95.7 The Fan. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including the point spread, player props, over-unders, and more. So, visit FanDuel.com/Mike, M-I-K-E, and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. 21 plus and physically present in New York. First online real money wager only. $10 first deposit required. Bonus issued is non-withdrawable bonus bets, which expire in 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369.
Odyssey has sports for every fan. Keep up with your favorite teams from across the country.
And W239BF Rochester, the sports leader. 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
Always live on the free Odyssey app.
The Fan, Rochester, sports update.
Preseason wrapping up tomorrow for the Buffalo Bills as they're back in the Windy City where, yes, Josh Allen and other starters will play. Meanwhile, Chris Trapasso today on One Bills Live talking about the possibility of the Bills shopping at linebacker.
Even if you were to trade for a Levante David or a Devin White, yes, they could be out there and they probably would be physically capable. But really what I think the Bills are more concerned about is the mental side of it and calling the plays and getting everyone lined up.
Our coverage will begin at 11 o'clock tomorrow morning with the kickoff at 1. Chris Brown, Eric Wood, and Sal Capaccio. Rochester Red Wings, it's game 4 of a 6-game series as they're home tonight once again against Worcester. The Yankees are down in Tampa. The Orioles are home against Colorado. Sports is brought to you by Get My Perks. Save half off to Sticky Lips Barbecue and Juke Joint. Gene Battaglia and the sports leader, The Fan, Rochester.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
Yes, they'll play. Yeah, the starters will play. Yeah, it's just what I feel like is best for the team right now. And every preseason is a little bit different based on where guys are and where the team is. And so they're going to play this week. And I feel like it's best for where we're at right now.
I don't want to jinx anything, but I'm going to hop on the bandwagon that Bills fans say it every year. We're going to win it all. Go Bills!
Let's go, Amerks.
Not only the 53-man roster, but what I love, the practice squad.
The NFL preseason continues tonight with a triple header.
Ursay and Jarrett Jones are locked in a battle right now as to see who can be the zaniest, kookiest, and most entertaining figure in pro football.
Mike Danger.
I am a hero.
Reach.
Gene Battaglia.
You know how you always have that joke, hey, I wouldn't want your job? I think I would have wanted Mike Danger's job. Even though he got to go see Doja Cat in Los Angeles.
Okay, I'm jealous. I said it. I'm jealous.
It's week 0 in college football tomorrow, but we only have 2 top 25 teams that will be in action.
0 week.
Buy or sell you like week 0?
As an expression?
Yeah.
I hate it so much. It's so dumb.
It's got to be week 1, right?
Yeah, it's week 1.
What do they know?
Giannis Antetokounmpo doesn't plan to sign a contract extension with the Bucks when eligible next month.
It's showtime! No!
The A's leaving. Then day 2 of the tour championships underway.
Soccer!
He's also the guy that was a baby model. Were you a baby model?
95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
If you make the analogy, the NFL season being a roller coaster ride, right now it's like we're about to hit that apex, that top where it goes up, the cars go up, tick 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 tick, and you're almost at the top of the hill before that first wild dip. It's the final week of the preseason. Bills taking on the Bears in Chicago tomorrow, their preseason finale. We learned that the Bills will be playing their starters for a portion of the game. We've got other preseason action tonight throughout the course of the weekend, and it all leads up to the start of the regular season after Labor Day, and man, it can't get here soon enough. Gino, we're all excited for it.
Yeah, I mean, are you more excited of what you're going to watch this weekend or what may happen next week, the cuts? And again, there's something morose, like, oh, I'm excited to watch people lose their jobs, but there's just going to be so much movement when we get those. And I would fully expect when we come back on Monday, there are going to be a lot of teams that are going to get a jump on this and like do right by their players and like, okay, here are cuts. And really, ultimately, you're going to wait until you put in the claim, and then we'll find out Wednesday at noon will be the day. Talking about games tonight, we got Detroit, Carolina. That's actually on TV tonight. CBS has that. Which, okay, see the kid from Carolina, Bryce Young, and watch our guy, Mr. Muscle there for Detroit. New England's at Tennessee on NFL Network, and that's the first half of the doubleheader. Chargers and Niners on NFL Network.
And then, of course, the Bills taking on the Bears. You'll be able to hear that action on the Fan Rochester starting tomorrow pregame at 11 o'clock. We appreciate you joining us in the Sports Bar. Welcome to Happy Hour. Thanks for listening locally at 95.7 FM and AM 950. We sound our best in the free-to-download Odyssey app. We've got the video stream up for you at the Fan Rochester on YouTube and on Twitch. Appreciate if you like and subscribe there. You'll always know when we go live with our show, which is every weekday from 3 until 6. We sound our best on the Odyssey app, and we sound our best in your smart speaker as well when you ask it to play 95.7 The Fan. So Josh Allen and the Bills starters will get some time out there on the field tomorrow afternoon, which goes a little bit counter to what some teams do. I mean, we just mentioned Dak Prescott of the Cowboys won't take a single snap this preseason. And Sean McDermott's explanation, as you heard there just a few minutes ago, was every season is different. Every team is different. And for our team, for this year, for this team, they need more reps.
I fully think, I believe that had the Bills actually went out there and executed or even showed like they cared against the Steelers, and they didn't show like they cared, that first string would not be on the field this past Saturday. So this is McDermott doing this in part for peace of mind that, okay, everything's fine. And in part, hey, everybody, sit up a little straight here. We can't afford to be taking plays off. We can't afford to be taking games off. This is going to be a long season. And if you don't believe me, there is a game every year where the Bills turn in a stinker like they think they have it in the bag. See Jacksonville. See the game against Zach Wilson last year. So that can't happen if you want to win a division. It certainly can't happen if you want to win the number 1 seed here in the AFC. So this is in part... I wouldn't have done this. I think the risk is too much. What is the reward here? Well, you're just trying to set a tone here. The risk is great. We'll be losing our minds if somebody gets hurt of value coming up. So that's number 1, get through healthy. Number 2, and I kind of agree with what Fate said earlier with us on Monday. Okay, if they don't execute, if the offense doesn't score, then
you're still not worried.
Not worried.
Still not worried at all. Yeah, when you were telling me that there were reports this week that McDermott had guys running laps if they were offside, like this harkens back to like Greg.
Yeah, Greg. I'm gonna blow the whistle and like 2-a-day at Fisher. Yeah,
my anticipation would be that the Bills' first team offense scores one series, get some points on the board, and then you're probably done, right? This is a Chicago team that you had no problem with it last year in the regular season. They will have some of their starters out there on the field as well. We'll see Justin Fields for the Bears offense. But I would say that for Allen and for the offensive starters, it's a series, points, have a nice day. And then it's the Kyle Allen show moving forward.
I would hope that is going to be exactly the way you kind of describe it. One series, thank you, everything's fine. And the same thing with the defense tomorrow.
And if they show up with a pulse, they should be able to do that. I mean, what was alarming about Pittsburgh was they were over it, man. If they were over it then, was this a wake-up call? Like, hey, we're not done. We still have work to do. I think for as much as the coach says, and says things like every team is a different team, every year is a different season, we're going to treat everything differently. Do the players, the vets, the guys that have been here year in and year out, do they really buy into that? Or are they just rolling their eyes and saying, do they agree with that? It's like, we have to play. We didn't play well last week. Or are they like, come on, guys, it's the preseason. Just let us get to week 1.
Right. I mean, when you and I and a lot of other people were out at Fisher, I thought they worked hard. I thought they were what I observed from Diggs and the other starters on this team. I didn't really see any practice where you're like, that was just a bad, lazy practice today. I thought they got in good work. So yeah, you're going down to the Steelers. Just doesn't. It's hard to get emotionally up for these games. And yeah, like you said, they seem to be over it. Did go on last night with Bink. By the way.
You were in Kansas City.
I was on Kansas City, and it's funny the story or what people think from the outside. Like, hey, is everything okay with Diggs and Allen? Everything okay with? And I have to explain.
Good, thanks Stephen A. for that.
Right, that all got kicked back up, and I had to explain what I know and what I didn't know about Josh Allen and Steph Diggs. But everything seems fine at this point. And then the follow-up question was, is the window closing on the Buffalo Bills? Now, how do you think I answered that?
No. As long as you have Josh Allen, the window is open.
Correct. I said that, and even I kind of turned it around. It's like you had Patrick Mahomes, and look at how the cast is changing around him. Like, and I even said, you could say the Buffalo Bills this year are last year's version of the Chiefs. we kind of moved on from the Chiefs last year. My goodness, you lost Tyreek Hill. You have these holes on defense. You should have lost against the Buffalo Bills 13 seconds. Bink and the guy who was on, they didn't want to hear that, but I do think there is, this is the optimist, there's an analogy that while the world has kind of moved on from the Buffalo Bills, this is still a quality football team.
For sure. I think a big part of that is more about what the other teams did, less than what the Bills didn't do, right? I mean, This is Aaron Rodgers coming to the Jets. This is Tua, getting healthy and that offense in Miami clicking, and Vic Fangio now on the defensive side of the ball for the Dolphins and running that defense. So,
what did they say last year in the AFC West?
Right, it was the same story.
Same story.
The difference and why they probably don't want to hear it is, well, the Chiefs actually won something before they were getting that. So the analogy is there. It falls a little bit flat because the Bills just haven't been able to get over it. And then it goes back to coaching for me. Like Sean McDermott's idea of playing starters week 3 of the preseason because we need it. We weren't good enough last week or whatever it is. Almost the punishment of adult men run laps when you're offside. What do I have to do to get it through to you? They're professionals, man. They're professionals, and on the field in Pittsburgh, they were over it.
Well, the professionals, and if somebody, I think Reggie Gilliam had a penalty. It sounds cruel, but like you're playing for your job. If you're not ready to do your job correctly, then you're going to find another place to do it, not here in Buffalo. So that's really the motivation for a lot of these bubble guys. And personally, I was taken aback that, like, really, he's going to play Allen in this game? Really, he's going to play? Like, you're kidding.
I think it surprised a lot of people. I was surprised by it. I didn't think that. I thought week 3 would be all bubble guys, just guys fighting it out. And that's why I think if it's anything, it's probably a series. Even if it's a field goal, you get some points, you move the ball, you play mistake-free, no penalties, no turnovers against a Bears defense that is still young and trying to find their way. You limit the exposure to a series, maybe 2. But if you're getting points that first, we'll have plenty to talk about next week if the Bills' starting offense goes 3 and out, and that's it.
Or if Spencer Brown gets turned around, or who knows what could possibly happen here. One other storyline I'm going to be looking for, and this happens all the time. I remember the first year we started doing this show, like we thought it was going to be a starter. Like, wait a second, Manny Lawson's playing out there in the fourth quarter. Yeah. Is he in trouble? Like, if you see somebody out there in the fourth quarter, it's not because they need the extra work. It's because they might be in serious jeopardy.
Well, now, because I've been out of pocket for the last 3 days, Gino, kind of give me an update here on the injury of Dodson. Is Dodson back at practice yet, or is he still?
No, Dodson's fine. It's Bernard.
I'm sorry.
Yep, Terrell Bernard.
It won't be the first time I mix up Tyrell with Terrell.
Correct.
Dodson is Tyrell.
Tyrell Dodson.
Terrell is Bernard. And Bernard had the hamstring injury on the last day of camp, which kept him out of week 2.
Working off to the side. So if you're
he's
working
not playing,
no, he's not going to play. Yeah. So you're going to have Dodson out there, maybe AJ Klein.
Late.
Right. No, the one that we don't know about, McGovern. So McGovern's leg, it's a leg injury.
Connor McGovern.
Yes, correct. And the starting left guard who's had a pretty good camp. It's something we haven't even talked about. Like, he is the guy, but McDermott was being very evasive when asked about it. The stats. So he's not going to be playing tomorrow.
Yeah, you need him week 1. I'm fine with that. If he's injured, get him back for week 1. But what is a little alarming is the linebacker competition was cut short due to an injury, and now you're left with AJ Klein or Tyrell Dodson. Eesh. And those guys probably playing in the second half because just out of necessity, unless you want Balen Spector out there for more snaps at middle linebacker, but he hasn't shown up either.
So while you were gone, Sal Capaccio came on with us Wednesday.
Tell me about your conversation with Sal.
So Sal, who is not going to the White Sox game, which I can't blame him. It's like you go to Chicago, the Cubs are in town, you go to the Cubs, White Sox. Yeah, I'm okay.
I've never been to a White Sox game. I'm a Chicago guy. I'm a Cubs guy. I've been to Wrigley Field multiple times. I've never been to a White Sox game.
Not once. Never curious.
No,
never.
Not really.
No. Okay, so that's the sidebar. Asked him about the middle linebacker, and his quote was, "Perhaps the starting middle linebacker for this team isn't on the roster right now.
All right.
Which I hear Chris Trapasso in the Sports Update. He brings up a good point that the middle linebacker position, you have to have that relationship, not with the defensive coordinator, with your head coach. The head coach is actually going to be in there, do this, do that, and you have to know the defense, and that is going to be something that is going to propel A.J. Klein, say, to the top, or Dodson, and that would be your argument, I guess, as to why the Buffalo Bills shouldn't do this, and I would say, what month is this? It's August. What month are we concerned about? January. Okay? You can go out and get your guy. It doesn't mean he has to come in week one. Let him learn. Let him get some reps. He can also wear the green dot, and you swap the guy in. Honestly, Danger, this is the move. I am begging the Buffalo Bills. If there is somebody with cachet that you only have to flip a mid-round pick for, do it. And we talk about Brandon Beane and his college scouting, but this is a pro scouting department. Is there a team right now that is not using somebody properly? Is there going to be a team that's going to release somebody and be on the street that you could bring in? At minimum, that should happen. At minimum. Because you can't say Bernard did anything.
Do you have a guy in mind? Because I don't know if such guy exists. I mean, is Luke Kuechly still in football shape? Could Luke Kuechly come back? Because he could probably start week one because he has intimate knowledge of the Sean McDermott defense. I worry that...
All right, I do have somebody.
Give me one.
He's 33, though. I'm thinking a team that, okay.
Levante David?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about him in the offseason, right? Like, he was a free agent. He could have gone anywhere. He went back to Tampa because I think that's where he wants to end his career.
That could be it. Or maybe he just sees this isn't it. Won't you make the call at least?
Well, I think, yes, you have to snoop around. I don't know that player exists. And furthermore, if that player does exist, what we've learned about this regime is that if they don't trust you, if you're new, if you're not a part of what they build from the start, it's harder for you to get on the field. I'm looking forward to watching this season and seeing if Jordan Poyer looks like the Jordan Poyer that we've grown to love, or if he looks like the Jordan Poyer that took a really bad angle on a long touchdown run last week against the Steelers. Because you've got a young guy in Taylor Rapp that can get out there, but a young guy in Taylor Rapp that might not get out there because of the loyalty you have to Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde. Both still very good players. But we saw it with Nyheim Hines in the trade deadline last year. You bring a guy in whose specialty, to anybody who has eyes and watches football, specialty, get him in space, let him explode, let him use his speed, catch balls out of the backfield. The Bills did none of that with Nyheim Hines. Why? They didn't trust him. There's a lack of trust between the coaching staff and new guys.
I would say yes, not always true. I mean, because Ryan Bates was that's probably the perfect example of making a trade.
But we saw something in him in that this is why Andy Isabella is a story. He showed up at camp and he turned heads. And Ryan Bates did the same thing with the opportunity he was given. I think that's what these guys are about. Hey, you have an opportunity, make the most of that opportunity and you'll be rewarded. Well, what if you're a guy that's making the most of your opportunity, but you can't get on the field because you have a loyalty towards a guy that's aging or less of a player than they were before? That's what I'm worried about with middle linebacker. That Dodson is going to win out, or Klein is going to win out just because they've been here longer. And anybody you bring in from the outside that might be more talented, or anybody that you draft who might be more talented, won't eventually get on the field just because of that loyalty.
It's a problem. It's going to be like this big donut in the Bills defense this year, and it doesn't make me yearn for Tremaine Edmonds. And I don't know if Edmonds is going to be out there tomorrow or not for Chicago. It just kind of brings home the point that your head coach is going to be so invested on that side of the ball with making the play calls and the inside linebacker. And if he's going to be invested that side and he's got other responsibilities, well, he's going to have to go to somebody he trusts. And ultimately, I think that's going to be A.J. Klein. And I know a lot of Bills fans, their head is going to explode at this point, but A.J. Klein can get people in the right spot. I also asked Sal, too, all right, what about this idea that maybe to kind of lift that off, could you actually give the green light to Micah Hyde or Jordan Poyer? And he said, yeah, there are teams that do that, but the idea that from the safety position to get guys lined up, he doesn't see the Bills and McDermott going that route.
Yeah, I think McDermott's a guy who's done it a certain way his entire career, will continue to do it a certain way his entire career, except for when it comes to starting your starters in preseason football. Like, this is a new year and a different team, and this is what we're going to do.
I'm tough. I am the man in charge here. Let you know about that right now, Buffalo Bills. Yeah.
Well, we'll have the action for you here. Oh, by the way, I mean, if you really, really didn't have a reason to watch, if aside from watching the Bills, come on, preseason Peterman is going to be on the field at some point for the Chicago Bears, and we all want to see that.
A little bit in New Orleans, I think he's the man.
We really want to see what preseason Nate Peterman looks like because it's spectacular. There's nothing better than preseason Peterman.
17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. Seventh year?
Mm-hmm.
Seventh year for Nathan Peterman. Still in this league, hasn't accomplished a damn thing.
Well, he's employed. He's accomplished employment.
Right.
He started a game last year, Chino.
He will be cut, and then at some point, he'll be on a practice squad. Something somewhere.
He might stay on the Bears practice squad. You don't know. Yeah, Nathan Peterman looks good in the preseason. And if you ever want to doubt how good Nathan Peterman looks in the preseason, let me jar your memory to the year that Nathan Peterman was so good in the preseason that Bills head coach Sean McDermott thought he should start week 1 against the Baltimore Ravens. And Josh Allen can stand to learn something by being on the bench and holding his clipboard. Well, that lasted a half.
Yeah. This would be, like, gosh, you forget with the Raiders. He was in 4 preseason games. That season, he had 3 touchdown passes for the Buffalo Bills that preseason. 5 in his time with the Raiders over 2 years in the preseason. He is a preseason star.
He's a preseason hero.
So why then when the regular
Because you know what he does, Gene? He makes the most of that opportunity. He gets the opportunity, and he won't let you down. He's a winner. He's going to show you just how much of a winner he is. That's what McDermott saw.
9 preseason touchdowns for Nathan Peterman in his career.
9 times.
Is that crazy?
Yeah, he's a superhero in the preseason. He has a deodorant. There's something about him in the preseason, a musk that's intoxicating. And McDermott fell for it. He was completely intoxicated by young Nathan Peterman. Won him over. Beat out Josh Allen. Let me say it again. Nathan Peterman, once upon a time, beat out Josh Allen, according to Sean McDermott. Where's the logic in that?
It wasn't only that, but after losing, what was the score? 47-3. I remember this.
He was mad.
I remember
he was mad after that because of how that went.
He was mad, and I believe this. I don't have fact that it came from above. Like, hey, we're not doing that anymore.
Yeah.
Okay, we're not. Stop with this.
Yeah.
Like, he really had this kind of textbook. This is the way I want it done. Josh Allen is going to want to earn his job. He will get a point.
Culture and process.
We're going to go with a veteran. Yep. We're not going to go with a new player.
Culture and process. Who do you think made that call? Just if we're allowed to speculate. Did it come from Terry?
It came from Terry.
It had to, right?
Okay, I'll give you another person. Kim.
You're right.
One of the two.
Right. Like, what are we doing? Are you kidding me? Did you see how bad he is? I don't care what he did in the preseason. Did you see how bad he is? And you've got this kid with a rocket just waiting and ready to go. Why do we invest? If you don't start your first round quarterback week 1 of his rookie season, why did you take him in the first round?
If you had somebody of the stature of like Alex Smith, let's say, somebody that you can win games with, you have the best of both worlds, right? But you didn't have that in this situation.
No.
They don't have it in Indianapolis. Gardner Minshew, no. Certainly not in Houston, not in Carolina. Yeah. So that's why you're starting the kids.
They should. They should absolutely start. And Allen should have started that game against Baltimore.
Gosh, I remember going into that. Now, mind you, the Bills were a playoff team the year before. 10-3 playoffs loss. We should be a playoff team. it was such an easy Survivor pick, and I felt all icky. I'm like, no, we're taking against the Bills. We knew it was going to be bad. I didn't know it was going to be that bad, but
yeah. Nathan Peterman needed to win that locker room over. Tyrod was gone. It was Nathan Peterman's time to win over that locker room. That was the guy that threw 5 picks and a half the season before. That's the guy that was going to lead them to the promised land, lead them to some victories, help develop Josh Allen.
Oh, and by the way, the guy who threw an interception to end the game against Jacksonville wasn't Tyrod. Tyrod was knocked out of that game.
That's right.
You had the ball in plus territory, and Peterman turned it over.
Oh, whoa.
Wow, but we can all relive that. Why aren't you wearing your Nathan Peterman Bears jersey?
You know what? It's a good point, Gino. I would have, except I'm going to a Dad Rock show tonight. I'm taking Sandy. We're driving west. We're heading to Buffalo. We're going to go see Jimmy Eat World and Manchester Orchestra tonight. And I'm really excited for it because it's the one show. Like,
where's that, Art Park?
No, it's what is it? The Waterworks right there? No, Waterworks.
Yeah.
Riverfront.
Riverworks. Yes.
Right on the water.
That's why they like you should see where they have the ice rinks, the youth tournaments there.
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of cool.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that as well. But like for all of the shows and all of the things that I've done for the girls, we went to see Beyonce, we went to Chicago, and my little one wanted to see Steve Lacy. This is my delayed gratification tonight. My delayed gratification is me, my wife, a beer or two, and 2 of my favorite bands in Buffalo. I'm looking forward to it.
So it's for you then?
Absolutely.
Okay, good.
No question.
Good.
No, but Sandy's not a fan of going to concerts and live. You've been to concerts with us. She's not going to get into it.
I'm at Steely Dan, and the executive producer, she's into it. Guy who used to work with us, Mud, on CMF. Mud was into it. He's dancing and everything. I'm listening, and I look over, and it's not just Sandy. It's you, dude. You're both looking at your phones. It's not fun. Like, what do we like?
I know.
You're looking at your phones.
Know. But I'm spoiled, man. We had nosebleeds for that show. I didn't know it was BYOT night. I had to bring a telescope if I wanted to see old Steely Dan on stage, rocking out. I'm used to being I'm a snob. I'm a concert snob.
Yeah.
I like access. I like being up front. I like being up close. I get more into it the more up close I am to it. Tonight, I think we're up close. I'm feeling good about tonight.
See, Labor Day weekend, I am not going to a concert with the executive producer. I'm like, you go, and she's going with her girlfriends. Duran Duran. Can you imagine that scene?
That'll be a lot of fun.
Like, yes, all these women yelling for Simon.
Duran Duran had some hits back in the day. Some big hits back in the day. You're not going to that show?
I'm not.
You didn't get invited?
No, I did not. Not even invited.
Wow.
And it's like, no, it's girls' night out. I'm sure that's not going to be the only set of girls' night out at CMAC next week.
Or during the course of the football season, maybe some more girls' nights out while the football season goes on.
Listen, I'm like, next set, you know how I knew it was Thor? Because I'm already looking ahead. I'm like, ooh, LSU, Florida State, have the house to myself.
Yeah.
And just me and the dog.
That's
good.
good.
I like that.
Let's get to a round of shots next in the Sports Bar, Gino.
Yeah, so we will set you up here for baseball this weekend. Shohei's in the lineup tonight. Are you kidding me? John Fisher. No, I'm not talking about the Saints. I'm talking about the anti-Saint, the only real Canadian. For the first time since 2005, since he bought the team, he actually spoke. I'm not kidding you, to the public. We'll tell you what he has to say about this move and his thoughts and why. Yeah, there is one big kind of hiccup with this plan of moving the A's right now. Also, we got an update on the story that won't go away. The story about this soccer executive in Spain, and well, it's now kind of like getting to the part where doing the right thing, and a name for the past here in Rochester, doing some amazing things at an advanced age.
A round of shots next as we continue in the Sports Bar. Danger and Battaglia. Appreciate you joining us at 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester.
Odyssey has
update.
Preseason wrapping up tomorrow for the Buffalo Bills, where they are in Chicago. And yes, Josh Allen and the other starters will see some action in this game. Chris Trapasso today on One Bills Live on what to expect from the first round.
Sean McDermott just wants to see that first-team unit go out there, as much of the offensive line as that can play, be a cohesive unit, not have the false starts, the silly pre-snap penalties, even the holdings to call back some of those plays, and just let the Bills go in with a good taste in their mouth into that huge Monday night matchup against the Jets.
Our coverage begins at 11 a.m. Kickoff at 1 o'clock. Chris Brown, Eric Wood, and Sal Capaccio with the call. Week 0 college football. It begins tomorrow, 2:30 Eastern for Notre Dame against Navy in Ireland. Rochester Red Wings are home tonight, taking on the Woo Sox. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester.
Top Shelf Sports Talk. You're hanging out in the sports bar with Danger and Battaglia on the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester.
Happy Hour continues. It's time for a round of shots in the sports bar with Danger and Battaglia.
So John Fisher, he's been the owner of the Oakland A's since 2005. Last night, he actually gave his first national interview, his first interview in front of microphones, if you can believe that.
Did I see something that part of this was actually censored, or he went back and had some of the interview pulled? Did I read that correctly?
Yeah, so I've got to kind of figure out that part of it, what he wanted off the record. And, talking about the plans on moving here. The A's, why did he talk last night? Well, they've made their formal relocation request. There it is. Means that there is only one hurdle remaining, and that's the vote from MLB owners. In the interview, Fisher admitted there isn't a plan right now as to where to put the team in the interim while they're building this new stadium, saying he's open to extending his lease in Oakland by a few years until the new stadium is ready.
Is that that's the most likely scenario, right?
If they get over the emotion in Oakland, like, honestly, like if they did that for the Raiders, right? Because it's the NFL. You're still bringing in money. Nobody's going to the games right now.
Yeah.
So they might just tell them to pound salt.
But where are they going to go where they can actually draw? I mean, if they're a homeless team. They don't really, that's their best chance of drawing, isn't it?
Well, and then there's this other idea that, well, they're moving to Vegas. Can you put them in the AAA park? We saw the Bisons host the Jays. Here's why you can't do it. It's Vegas. That doesn't work. You actually need an indoor place.
You need a roof.
Yeah, or you're playing at games at 10 a.m. I mean,
Wait, how do they do that with the AAA team in Vegas? They play outside.
They play outside. So, but they would the MLBPA would never sign off.
Right, but God, that's got to be brutal.
Brutal, yeah,
just absolutely brutal. Like a AAA assignment to play summer ball in Vegas in the desert in 110, 150 degree days. Forget it.
It's like way back before they built, in Arlington, Texas. They used to have the bowl there and used to kind of bake there. So, yeah, 3/4 of the owners needed to say yes on the move.
Why would they say no? I mean, this is a move that inevitably, when it does happen, and when they do actually get a new stadium built for the A's, it makes everybody more money.
Why they would say no is the project real? And I just ask you that when they put out the artist renderings, they're all BS. Like people point out, wait a second, you can't on that small a parcel of land, you can't have a retractable dome. So if I'm an owner, I just have questions because could you imagine if you get into this, like, wait a second, we actually kind of did this.
It's just making it up as we go along.
Number two, like, and this is like, we've had these stories now, Milwaukee making noise.
Yeah.
You have this week, Reinsdorf. This story you missed. Like, he's making noise. It's like the old NFL. Like, you need a leverage city. Vegas still is that. And in the end, they're going to vote yes. The A's are done here. Shohei Ohtani expected to be in lineup tonight as the DH, even though he tore his UCL. The Angels taking on the Mets. Now, he also blew out his elbow in 2018 before undergoing Tommy John. He played that season as a DH and pushed the surgery to the offseason. As of today, the Angels still with a chance.
Come on, get out of here. That's not happening. Everybody knows that's not happening. I mean, this is so Angels-like. It's ridiculous. I mean, imagine the scenario that could have played out. Could you, if the Angels know, and they should know, you're using a player like No other team uses their star player. He's going out there like a machine. He's batting and he's pitching. And you had to know that this was a possibility. It's a possibility for anybody, but more likely to happen to Shohei Ohtani because of how he's used.
I want to know from someone why Ohtani was welling up in the dugout. The one game, this is like 3 weeks ago. Was he in pain at that point? And there's 162 games. Baseball is not that sort of emotional sport. Like, yes, Wilmer Flores cried, but he thought he was traded. Like, name me another instance in a regular season game where you actually saw tears from a player. That was just odd. While we have Buffalo Bills football and other preseason football this weekend, we have college football beginning tomorrow. Welcome to Week 0. Notre Dame against Navy from Ireland, 2:30 on NBC. ESPN has that exciting UMass New Mexico State at 7 o'clock. Ohio State and San Diego State on FS1. And slim pickings this week, certainly. Besides Notre Dame, there's only one other ranked team playing. That's number 6 USC, opening a home against San Jose State. 8 o'clock on the Pac-12 network. Anybody carry the Pac-12 network?
It's on Tubi. What platform has that one?
Tubi's like the free one, right? Where you get like crap from like what's
the other one? There's Freevee is the other one. Freevee? Is it on Freevee or Tubi? They've all got cute names. I'm guilty. I'm a Fubo guy. Fubo, Freevee, Tubi.
No, we've all done that trying to watch the pirated thing online. You click on this link and it's all these blinking ads. Isn't that like the Pac-12 network at this point?
Where you click the
link,
yeah,
it's gone.
Don't click the link, by the way. Like everybody that tells me, hey, you could find it. Here's a link. You can find. I don't know what kind of venereal disease I've given my device by clicking that link, but don't click that link. It's bad. It never works out.
That would explain why my thing is running so slow, I suppose. The initial reports in the wake of the investigation by FIFA that Spain's soccer head there, Luis Rubiales, would resign today. Instead, this came more and more off like the scene from the movie Wolf of Wall Street. I'm not leaving. I'm not leaving. Yeah. Rubiales is not resigning. In fact, he's now saying that kiss with Spain's Jenny Hermoso was consensual.
This was the kiss after they won the World Cup. He went right up to her, kiss on the lips.
Full on, 2 hands.
Yeah.
And now you have the men's national team in Spain, members saying they're going to boycott over this unless this guy steps down.
All right, well, that'll do it.
Oh, there's another piece of video, too, that while this is going on, that this guy was actually, censor myself, if you have kids in the car, he was grabbing his junk.
Oh. While kissing her?
No, like right before.
Oh, so was he adjusting? He was adjusting.
I'm sure that's going to be his excuse.
Yeah, I mean, who amongst us hasn't needed to adjust? Sometimes you need to adjust.
No, if you're like on stage.
We watch baseball. We watch football. These guys are on TV. They know they're on TV. Tell me that Kershaw's not going to adjust before he has to throw a game in the postseason. You're going to see him adjust. What's next? We can't spit on TV anymore?
I don't know if that was adjusting or not.
Okay.
Finally, we used to have the LPGA in town, and one of the more colorful characters that would come through, remember Joanne Carter? Joanne Carter, Big Mama. Not only is Big Mama, she's still alive, she's still playing. The U.S. Women's Senior Open, who knew they had such a thing? Big Mama shot an opening round of 80, which is actually 4 shots better than her age. Yes, she's 84, and she beat 30 other golfers in the field. Not sure if she still chokes him down, those darts on the course, though.
It's a good story. Miss Big Mama. Big Mama got it all. Last call is next in the sports bar. You can join us at 585-866-4FAN, 866-4326 if you want to pull up a stool and join us here in the sports bar as we close up shop and get you ready for your weekend, including the Bills and the Bears. I'm excited because I will only have to watch 1 preseason game instead of 2 preseason games this weekend. 2 for 1 for your favorite host.
There it goes. Yeah, that's efficient.
Snap into action this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Mike Danger for FanDuel Sportsbook, the official partner of 95.7 The Fan. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. Now, if you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. Visit FanDuel.com/Mike and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. 21 plus and physically present in New York. First online real money wager only. $10 first deposit required. Bonus issued is non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369.
Odyssey has sports for every.
.950 The Fan, Rochester.
All right, against our better judgment during last call at 866-4326, we check in with John from Rochester. You Spartan, you. What's going on, man? You ready for the weekend?
Oh, yeah, big time. And I'll tell you one thing. I am a fan of Nathan Peterman.
Of course you are.
I'll tell you. The guy, 7th year in the league?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's an accomplishment.
Yeah.
Man, oh, man.
Be happy for him, man. He's been employed. He's stayed working. I mean, he's not a good quarterback, but be happy for him. He's at least accomplished employment.
He could turn it around. You never
Stop.
know.
That's as far as I'm going to go with the compliments for Nathan Peterman, John. Stop. No more.
But I got to tell you about the Bills. And there's a positive to how bad they played the other night, and if they play bad tomorrow. And the reason is this: it makes it easier on the coaches to cut people. I've seen Bills. I've been watching the Bills preseason since the '60s when they used to play 6 exhibition games. And when they play well in preseason, it puts a lot of pressure on the coaches because they don't like to cut guys if they're playing well. This way, the guys know they're not up to par, and there's no problem.
Yeah, you're just not cutting starting linemen. Like linemen who jump off sides, linemen who get olayed at the line of scrimmage. John, appreciate the call. I mean, yes, it'll be easy to cut guys that didn't show up or guys that were barely going to make the roster anyways. Guys that you just brought in will hit the streets, right? They don't have a chance.
Which is why I don't know why McDermott making the guys run a little bit more. Like, this isn't Section 5.
It's crazy.
It's like, yeah,
they're adults.
Yeah, they're grown men.
They're professionals. Now, you want them to play like professionals. You want them to not make silly mistakes. You don't want them to jump offside. You don't want the holding penalties. But how is that playing with that locker room? Do they see it, do it, and say, we deserve it? Or do they see it, hear it, and say, this guy?
Are they viewing playing tomorrow as a punishment?
Yeah. This guy. Rolling their eyes like, this guy. Making us play week 3 of the preseason? Are you kidding me? Does he know who we are? The Buffalo Bills. We made him. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. How long they're out there for and what they're able to do with their time. We'll have that action for you. Pregame starts 11 o'clock tomorrow. Hope you have a great weekend. Gino and I are back Monday afternoon starting at 3 o'clock with the Sports Bar here on The Fan Rochester. Zach Gelb next.
Odyssey has sports for every fan. Keep up with your favorite teams from across the country. The inside scoop from experts. AUD.